Brought to you by Lair magazine. Are you a busy dungeon master without enough time to create content for your D&D game? Would you like professional, pre-made 5th edition adventures and other resources you can drag and drop into your existing campaign? If so, Lair magazine has exactly what you need. Every issue of Lair magazine comes with 2 5th edition adventures, maps designed for use on virtual tabletops, and other dungeon master resources. New monsters, puzzles, traps, magic items, NPCs, pre-made encounters, and more. Become a DM Lair patron today to get a new issue of Lair magazine every month, along with loads of bonus content, such as additional 5th edition adventures and map packs with even more digital maps. DM Lair patrons also get extra perks, such as playing in D&D games with me, voting on the videos I make, access to my VIP Discord channel, a monthly video hangout over Zoom, and more. Click that link below to learn more and become a DM Lair patron today. I gotta get some tea really quick. All right, there we go. I got it. I got my tea. Squeaky, what do you think you're getting? It's not snack time. All right, hello, folks. What's up? Norman Franklin's gonna leave. We just started, dude. He's like, I'm done. This is garbage. Goodbye. What's up? Cullen Anderson, hello. How's it going? Penguin Butt, what's up? Huber, Fred, what's up? Goliath Cleric, yo, Sir Vic, what's up? Dreams Gone, hello. Jonathan Schmidt, what's up? Shadow Cat, whoa. Stop biting me. Meepy, what's up, dude? Coin Slot, hello. Lincoln, yo. Smoky Mountain Outdoors, ooh, bacon. Trace, yes, you made it. Silver Mage, what's up? Chaotic Vito, hello. Fenrir, what's up? This is 09, hello. Robert Griffin, hello. Rachel Fields, good to see you again. Jade Gorton, hello. Comrade Red Falcon, oh. Looking forward to when the rogue gets to be the DM in your skits. The rogue as the DM? That would be really bad. Colin, you're very welcome, dude. I'm glad to hear you got that book, dude. Mommy wants attention now. Mommy needs attention. How is life treating you? Hashtag question. I'm really busy right now. I have put in lots of long days recently. Today I was up at 4 and I worked until about 11, and then I had to go get a haircut, and I went to the range, went to the gym, got back from the gym, and now I'm streaming. So it's gonna be a solid what is that? I don't know, it's a lot. Yesterday was an even longer day. So it's working on a whole bunch of crap, but it should get better. It should get better because anytime, we just had LayerCon, right? And anytime I have something like that where I can't like do my normal work, I get way behind on stuff. And so now I'm in catch-up mode. But you get through that. I'll probably be mostly caught up by Monday, and then things will kind of return back to normal. But that's just the way those things work. Lance is a first-time DM. Their first game is next Wednesday. I've used this channel to help prepare. Awesome, Lance. I hope that your game goes well. It might not, because it's your first game. And if it doesn't, don't blame me. I'm just doing the best I can here. I'm sure it'll be fun, though. I'm sure you'll be fine, dude. He's like, I've helped prepare for my first game ever using the DM Lair channel advice, and it bombed, and it's his fault, and he sucks. I'm sorry. That was very close to proper. Oh yeah, was it? I got your name pretty close. Sweet. Yeah, LairCon was fun. I had fun at LairCon. How was your day, Luke? It was productive. I got a lot of stuff done. I went to the range. I think I shot 400 rounds out of my 22 pistol. I was just going at it. I had a big box that I was like, you know, I should just finish this box off. I've had this box for a while. I should just shoot it all and make sure it's good. And so I did. I was just doing a lot of rapid fire, some mag dumps and crap. I had to get through 400 rounds, and I think I got through it in, it was under an hour, I think. Of course, reloading takes time, you know. One of the targets, I think I put about 100 in one of the targets, and the second target has like 300 in it, and it's just peppered. Yes, wearing. When in doubt, blame Luke. Bjornik. Hello, Bjornik. Hello, dude. Just wanted to thank you for the great videos and content. Really appreciate it as a new D&D player. You are very welcome, dude. I'm happy to help, man. Well, when I get to run my next game, which will be about 30 years ago, should be interesting. I'm very rusty. Oh, dude. Cool. Welcome back, man. Lead therapy is good for the soul. Yeah, you know what I really want, though? I want moving targets. I really want moving targets because shooting at a stationary target is just not super interesting. And if I could be moving and also be shooting at a moving target, that would make it even more interesting. Because I've been in the lanes shooting at stationary targets for long enough now that it's lost kind of the edge. You know, it's too easy. So I need to up it up, you know, make it different. Oh yeah, Cullen, cleaning my guns is not the most interesting thing in the world. Well, I'll tell you what, the two 9mm I have are really easy to clean. Those are really pieces of cake to clean, no problem at all. Now, I have a 1911, that's my 22 pistol is a 1911 model. And that thing is a pain in the butt to clean. Big old fat pain in the butt. And of course it's a 22, and 22s run pretty dirty. Like the ammo gives off a lot of powder and crap. So it gets, like, I peeked into my chamber of my 22 after I got done shooting, and it was all clogged up with like gooking garbage in there. So it needs a good cleaning. My AR is not hard to clean. ARs are pretty easy to clean. You gotta take, there's a lot of fiddly bits in there that you gotta take apart, but I don't think it's that hard. It's not that bad at all to clean. A tactical training course? Yeah, I need to start taking courses, what I need to do. I had some one-on-one instructor time, which was really good when I was first starting, but I need some like courses. That's exactly what I need. Ones that have like range time and you're doing like interesting stuff. That would be really fun. No, I don't shoot animals. Especially if I'm not gonna eat them. So I don't do that. Okay. Ooh, hero chicken. What's up? All right, let's start the live stream, shall we? Get this shenanigan show on the road. I need to click some buttons. Let's, Squeaky, you're gonna have to stop biting me so I can concentrate. Here, let's do this. And hey, hello, welcome to the live stream. Tonight we're just gonna be hanging out. I'll be answering your questions about D&D and stuff like that. That's pretty much all I do. We sit here, we look at the cats, we hang out. It's gonna be fun. So yeah. Let's see. Stuff that's going on. We do have a giveaway going on tonight. Hopefully the bot is working and my moderators can put a link to the giveaway in the chat for you. It's into the Facebook or store credit if you're not in the US, because I can only ship to the people in the US. I'm sorry. International shipping is a nightmare and crazy expensive. You'll have to forgive me. So we got a giveaway going on, and what else are we doing? Oh, we have a new charity. We have a new charity too that we are raising money for. So we were raising money for the Capital Area Humane Society. We raised $545 for them. I just did that donation today. We actually hit our goal of $500 like a while ago, and I was just lazy and didn't do the donation, but now I finally got it set. So now they've been donated to, and we picked a new charity, which is Canines for Warriors. I'm going to show you their little page here and kind of tell you a little bit about what they do. Let's go over here. There we go. So Canines for Warriors, they basically provide service dogs for veterans. So people who might have like PTSD, they might be disabled, stuff like that. They provide service dogs for them. What they do too is a lot of the service dogs that they provide come from high kill shelters. So dogs that would have otherwise been euthanized are taken, they're trained, and they're given to veterans to help them out through whatever difficulties they're going through and stuff like that. So our goal is to raise $500 for these dudes. It is through tipping. 100% of all tips will go toward these dudes. Once we get to $500, I will donate to them. So there you go. Hopefully the chat. Yeah, the chat is working. So, oh, it's cutting off the link. It always does this, man. Yeah, well, at least I hate how it cuts off the links. But anyway, if you'd like to donate, you're welcome to do so, and I would appreciate it. And so would our veterans that need service dogs and poochies. I have a dog. I have a Chihuahua. She is not a service dog. She just likes to eat and sleep. That's what my Chihuahua does. All right, so we got that going on, and cool. Those are the two things we got going on there, and then I got to do one more thing. How's the Chihuahua doing? She is still fat, and blind, but other than that, she's okay. We have an appointment with the dog ophthalmologist in December to look at her eyes, and she'll probably need surgery, and it'll probably cost me like $4,000 or something so she can see again. But dude, when we first got her and she could see, and now she can't see and she's blind, like the behavior difference is incredible. So I really want her to be able to see again. So we'll figure that out once the ophthalmologist. The crazy thing is we had to wait like 4 months to get an appointment with the dog ophthalmologist because there aren't that many of them and they're all booked up. I think I was reading that during COVID, the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, that a lot of veterinarians, I think they stopped doing it or something. I think there was the demand was the same, but for some reason there weren't as many veterinarians or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but for some reason there was a thing where like there wasn't as much veterinarian service available, but there was the same or more of people that need veterinarians. So now, like right now, if you want to go to a veterinarian, even a normal veterinarian, like I have to wait like a month or more to get any of my animals seen by a vet. Unless I go to like one down the road that's not very good, and they have their calendars much more open. But yeah, it's I don't know what's going on, but it's hard. You have to wait a long time to get your animals seen. Unless I go to like the emergency animal clinic, but then that's crazy expensive too. Oh, a lot of senior medical specialists retired during COVID. Okay. Oh, there you go. There you go. I know I was reading something about it. Squeaky, stop biting me, please. Okay, let me do the other thing, and then we're going to do our questions and stuff, because that's what you're all here for. I can't find my buttons. There we go. All right, so this is the part of the stream where I thank all of our awesome patrons and YouTube channel members. I really do appreciate all of your support. These are the folks right here whose names you're seeing on screen now, who help us create all of the content that we create for you. So all of my free videos, all of the things over on the DMLair.com, we have tons of free Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master resources, adventures, patrons, puzzles, traps, NPCs, monsters, lots of free stuff over on my website, thedmlair.com. These folks help support that. They also help support Lair magazine, which is the premium publication that my patrons receive every single month. Everything and anything that we do, these folks all help support it, so I am deeply appreciative. These are also the folks right here that help me go full time, and so these people are awesome. I love you all. Thank you so much. And then these folks right here, they get their names read out loud because they bribed me even more money to read their names out loud. So let's do that. 5e Magic Shop, Alex, Alex B, Alex S, Amanda W, Ambers, Andrew M, Andre U, Andy S, Andy W, Angelique K, Antoine B, Arrow Odd, Arutha, Ashley, Baldman, Bardabear, Ben P, Benjamin P, Burncastle, Brandon A, Brandon C, Carl C, Celestina K, Christopher G, Chris C, Christopher S, Clay W, Cody B, Contrary Gravy, Daniel S, Derek E, Double D, Doug Dresna, Duty K, Dutch, Ed R, Edward L, M Fabro, Eric B, Aaron O T, Fabian H, Forest Brew, Gabriel R, Gallus, Gary V, Gene A, Jeff R, Goliath Cleric, Gravy Chorn, Harlan S, Heather L, Iron Cascade, It's Baoban, Izzy T, Jace F, Jackie Pizza, Jacob, Jake L, Jacob K, James L, Jan F, Jessica J, Jim P, JM, Joanne P, Joe D, Joe E, Joe, John A, John C, Jordan G, Joseph H, Josh R, Josh S, Joshua W, K, Kale S, KK, Keith L, Kevin F, Kezides, Kirby, Curryclaw, Kyle M, Labraworks, Lionheart, Magna N, Marty M, Marwin R, Matt B, Matthew J, Michael L, Mike S, Mirostal, Mitchell, Mr. Linkanu, Nerd with Glasses, Ol S, O&D, Penguin Butt, Psycho John, published author, Radiance Guardians, Ramus, Ramsey, Razlik, Race W, Renner C, Richard M, Robert C, Robert G, Robert J, Ron R, Ronald, Ryan, SG Sounder, Sakura, Sam B, Scott V, Shadow 1317, Shane L, Sheila A, Snowy Tiggy, Son of a Sofa Man, Soul Naya, Stephen G, Stephen T, Stephen A, Silik R, Tattoo Tokens, Tiora H, Tyran, The Three Quarters Hospital, The Old DM, The Pickle, The New Bad Hombre, Thiago P, Thomas F, Thomas T, Tiger 500, Tim Black, Timothy T, Tom C, Tommy T, Traveling Cash, Travels the Lost, Tyler R, Valagor, Vincent G, Vladimir S, Voloff V, Will M, William C, William H, Worth a Lot, XX Red Drum, Zachary J. Thank you so much. And hey, I did that pretty well tonight. Okay, where's my button? I didn't stumble a whole lot. Usually I mess those all up. No bribes and bacon. That's sinful. Shame. There's no what? All right. Let's find some questions. Zoom. Well, there's not a whole lot of questions in this sheet. I'm gonna have to just go to chat if we don't get more questions. Dang. Who's on questions tonight? We've only had like 6 questions. That's crazy. All right. Chaotic Vito says, how do you deal with a PC shifting alignment with their actions, but player refuses to acknowledge it's happening? I.e., lawful good paladin using chaotic evil sentient sword to kill, but convinced it's for greater good. So I don't really care if the player refuses to acknowledge it's happening. Like, if they're doing stuff that is evil or neutral or against their alignment, I'm gonna tell them, hey, your actions are not in accordance with this alignment. Your alignment is beginning to shift. Now, we can talk about it and they can argue their case, but ultimately, like, I'm the dungeon master and I can make that determination. Now, in this particular case, a lawful good does not mean that you do stuff for the greater good. That is not lawful good. That's not even really neutral good. Chaotic good means that you might do something that's not quite so good, but it's for the greater good. So in other words, you're not following the law. You're really just kind of doing whatever is needed for the greater good. So if you want to justify an evil action, such as killing or using an evil sword, which might be, I mean, I don't think that necessarily using an evil sword is an evil act. But if you're killing people with it or you're doing bad things with it, but the justification is that the means justifies the end, or the end justifies the means, that's not lawful good. That is probably chaotic good. So, I mean, that right there is just wrong. There is no basis for an argument where you can't say you're lawful good if you're doing bad things to do greater good in the end. That's at the very most least or whatever chaotic good, in my opinion. So I think that argument is just gone right there. But at the end of the day, I mean, you are the dungeon master, so you can say, no, I have determined that your actions are not in accordance with your alignment, and you're beginning to shift. If you keep doing those things, your alignment will shift. Now, does that have ramifications in the game? Mechanically? Not necessarily, because what does alignment actually affect? Alignment affects sometimes a magic item that you're using, but other than that, what does your alignment actually affect? Will it affect the paladin's relationship with their deity? Maybe, I don't know. It depends. I mean, a lot of it, even if the deity is lawful good, that doesn't mean that the deity only accepts lawful good followers. Many times a lawful good deity can accept neutral good or, you know, chaotic good followers. They don't have to be lawful good even because your deity is lawful good. It doesn't have to be that way. And so the question is like, what mechanically is their actions and shifting toward like neutral good actually going to affect in the game? Probably almost nothing. And so that brings us to another question. Why are we even arguing about this? Like, what does it even matter? Like, if you're shifting from lawful, if I think the player is shifting from lawful good to chaotic good, but mechanically it doesn't matter, why am I spending my game time arguing with my player or even discussing it calmly with my player when it doesn't matter? You know, it's like, who cares at that point? It's a moot point. It's something that we just want to argue about to see who's right, but there's nothing to gain and nothing to lose. It's just a pointless argument that instead of playing D&D, we're arguing about alignment. And this goes back to something that I've brought up before. I brought this up in a previous video. I think I made a video on alignment at least a year ago, if not longer ago. And my argument was basically alignment is dead and alignment kind of means very little and is probably going to be taken out of the game at some point. The only real purpose for alignment as it stands right now in our games, as far as I can see it, is to inform role playing. So if you say if you pick lawful good as your alignment, that should inform how you role play your character. But that's really the only effect. Like if I have a monster who is chaotic evil, like demons, that affects how I role play that monster, which is why I think that monster stat blocks should tell you what the monster's alignment is. What most of them are. There are exceptions. We yes, thank you, wizards. We get it. There are exceptions. Thank you. But most of the time, you run into a demon. The demon is chaotic evil. That helps me decide how to roleplay them. When a monster is lawful evil, like a devil, that helps me decide how to roleplay them. So that is the biggest use of alignment, in my opinion, is to help the person roleplaying, whether it's a character or whether it's a monster. Beyond that, alignment doesn't really serve a whole lot of purpose. Mechanically, it doesn't do a whole lot, except in a few instances of magic items that require certain alignments. But other than that, alignment is kind of dead and not used a whole lot, not worth a whole lot, in my opinion. And it really just leads us to arguing with our players about whether their paladin is shifting from lawful good to chaotic good or not. And it might not even matter. So why do we discuss it is the question. Because we're nerds and we want to see who's right. So that's my take on the whole alignment thing. Oh, and look at this. Now we got a whole bunch of questions in here too. So whoever was in the spreadsheet was like, oh, I gotta get to work. Luke's yelling at me. Now, I would argue that if you pick a certain alignment for your character, that you're supposed to be role playing, right? Like when I create a lawful good paladin, my goal is to role play that paladin and act lawful good. That's the whole idea of the game, is role playing. Now, I feel like many players probably don't do that a whole lot. I know that there are, obviously many players do role play their alignments, but some don't. You know, it's just something they put up. Squeaky, you're gonna stop biting me or you're gonna get it. At first he was like nipping at me, but now he's getting harder. I got bit by a cat once and I had to go to the emergency room and get like intravenous antibiotics put in me because it was starting to turn into like an infection that was going into my bloodstream and crap. There's a name for that, but it was not good. Cat bites are serious. And Squeaky's down here biting me. Little turd. Anyway, cat bites. Don't get bit by cats. It's not good. It almost always gets infected and you have to go get antibiotics. It's bad. Whereas squirrel bites aren't that bad. So if you get by a squirrel, you're probably okay. I am not a medical professional. Do not take my advice. Oh, septic. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Centerfire. It was good meeting you too, Centerfire, at the convention, man. Sepsis? Sepsis, is that what it is? Dude, the DC for a cat bite, if you get bitten by a cat, the saving throw DC is like a 25 or something. It's crazy. You have to be really tough to get those. Okay, next one. Rachel says sign language is now part of 1D&D. I mean, sign language was a thing ever since Ari Salvatore wrote the Drizzt novels, and Drow had sign language. You know, I mean, that might have predated him writing those novels. I don't know. You know, but anyway, sign language has always been in D&D in one way or another. It sounds like they're codifying it into an actual language, which is cool. I mean, it's super, super useful. I actually learned a little bit of sign language when I was in high school. There was one summer over summer break, I decided to learn sign language, and I bought a book and I learned sign language to a certain extent. The problem is that I had no one to practice it with. And so like I could only get so good, and then I just stopped doing it, you know. But it wasn't proper English sign language. It was, I think, what they called signed English. And so I would sign things in a typical English sentence structure, but American Sign Language it's different. It's not that way. So I didn't learn proper American Sign Language. I learned, I think, what they call signed English. I think that's what it's called. But what I just said is all operating based upon probably 20 years ago my knowledge of things. So I could be totally wrong. But anyway, I learned a little bit of something at one point. But that wasn't your question. What are your thoughts on the verbal and somatic components to spellcasting related to this? Maybe they work this out. I mean, I don't think it matters. Oh, verbal and somatic components. Okay. Well, I mean, just because you use sign language doesn't mean you can't vocalize things, you know? Like, even people who can't speak, because let's pretend they were born deaf, they can still use their vocal cords, right? It doesn't preclude you from making sound. You just might not be able to, because you can't hear it, you might not be able to pronounce things super well, right? I have listened to people speak that were born deaf and learned to speak even though they couldn't hear anything. And they pronounce things differently than we would expect, right? But they can kind of still do it, which I find fascinating. But anyway, the point is that being deaf doesn't preclude you from making sound. So I would think, and I'm just kind of making this up as I go here, that you could still have somatic components. You can still make sound with your vocal cords. You would just be making different sounds, right? I mean, it's magic. So when you learn to cast your spells, the sounds that you learn are perhaps different. They're not like a spoken language. And besides which, is spellcasting a spoken language? You know, like when we say abracadabra and stuff, is that an actual language, or is it just magical words? And so you could still vocalize magical words. It just maybe sounds different than other spellcasters or something, but I think you could still do that. So I don't think that we have to say that, you know, because you use sign language, because you're deaf, that you can't also vocalize things. You could still do it. So I think you could still have somatic components, and you could still have verbal components, which is the vocalizing of it. So I think that's fine. I don't think there's a problem there. Now, if you had somebody who could not speak at all, right? Let's pretend their vocal cords were just destroyed or don't work or something. Let's pretend. Then I would probably say that we need to come up with a replacement for verbal components, because you can't. It's not fair to get rid of verbal components, because then that character has an immense advantage over any other spellcaster, because they don't need verbal components. So you need to come up with some sort of suitable replacement. There's got to be something, and I don't know off the top of my head. But I think mechanic wise, there should be something so that there's still an even, you're still on par and it's still fair, you know, because if you, verbal components, almost all spells have verbal components. And for somebody to just say, well, you know, I can't make sounds, but I still want to spell cast, you know, just say, well, then just don't worry about verbal components. I don't think that works, because then they have an incredible advantage on the battlefield. So I don't think they should get it for free. I think there should be something done to make it even and balanced. I don't know what that is. I just think that something needs to exist, because otherwise, you know, what's to stop anybody from just saying, yeah, I don't use verbal components for X reason. I just want to omit them. I don't think that's fair. So we got to come up with a better, there's got to be something though. I don't know off the top of my head though. I'm sure other people would think about it. I got that one. My players have XP me. I don't know what that means. My players have something, a word that I don't understand. It sounds like, it looks like it's a verb. My players have XPME. I don't know what that means. It's a part of a verb. That is not an English word. Come. Oh, it's supposed to be come. Okay, I figured it out. My players have come up with the idea of building a fort or castle. Have you come across how to do this at all, and advice? Yeah, it's in the Dungeon Master Guide. I'm pretty sure the Dungeon Master Guide, it literally, let's go get the Dungeon Master Guide. Hold on a second. Mommy, come on, let me walk. Is it in the Dungeon Master? I'm pretty sure it's in the Dungeon Master Guide. It's in here somewhere. Hold on, let's find it. I mean, it's just gonna cost 20,000 gold pieces or something. It's either it's in here or it's in the player handbook. If anybody knows where it is, please tell us. I don't know if the character, this is gonna help me at all. I want to see if it says castle. If castle is here. I know that somewhere there was listed costs for it and stuff. I don't know where it is though. Is it in the player handbook? Probably in the equipment section. Mounts and vehicles, services, trinkets. No, that didn't do it. Trade goods, mounts. I don't know where it is, guys. Could you give me a page? The Dungeon Master Guide and the downtime activities? Where's the downtime in the Dungeon Master Guide? Downtime activities, 127. Look at there. There we go. Building a stronghold. It's literally in the Dungeon Master Guide. Imagine that. Coffee cam. All right, so we have in the Dungeon Master Guide, page 128, building a stronghold, and it gives you costs. It gives you time to complete it. There you go. And it's got rules. So what was the question? How have you done this, or how do you... Okay, so yeah, I would just follow these rules roughly. This is all you need. You know, just follow some rules. And there's a gold piece cost and it takes time. And they would be paying other people to do it for them and build it. And they could go on their normal adventures while they're getting this taken care of. I think it's pretty much as easy as that. You do not need anything more elaborate. You don't need an entire... You don't need third-party stuff for building castles and forts and stuff, because it's probably not going to occupy a whole bunch of your game time. And, you know, if you have to... I mean, this is like a column. Easy to read, follow the rules. You know, it's easy to implement. When you have really long books that talk about building a castle or a fortification, you know, like, you have to read it. Your players have to read it. Or here's the thing. Your players won't read it. You'll have to explain it to them. So why don't you just use the thing of the Dungeon Master Guide and make it easy, make your life easy on yourself. So that's how I would do it. I literally have offered to my players before, told them that because they have tons of gold and they're like, you guys can build fortifications and stuff if you want. And they never want to, they never care about it. I've only ever had one player who actually ever cared about building they wanted to build they actually wanted to build a dungeon. They were trying to become a lich and they wanted to build a dungeon that would be their fortification essentially. And they started doing it, but then they got kicked out of the game. So, and that never went anywhere. So I've never had any other players that ever wanted to build forts or stuff like that because it takes a long time and it costs a lot of gold, you know, and I don't know. Well, actually, no, you know what? That's not the reason they never want to buy it. That's not the reason they never want to build it. They never want to build their own fortifications because I usually give them a fortification at some point. Like that's what happened to my Sword Coast guard game. Like they were going up against, there was a castle that had priesthood and paladins of Torm in it, and the people of Torm there were not really that good. They were kind of good, but they were also like bad good, if that makes any sense. They were fanatics and just they were doing witch hunts and stuff and just doing crazy stuff. And so my players ended up defeating the paladins of Torm and taking their castle in essence. And then in my other game, for my Ancient Dragon patron players, like they had tons of different not fortifications, but like properties that they ended up owning that they would get through their adventuring as well. And so I usually just end up giving my players certain things over the course of gaming. It's part of the rewards of what they're doing, you know? And that's always really cool. And they enjoy that and stuff. So that's probably the main reason that they've never wanted to build anything, because I just give it to them. It's just a fun little reward, something different than like gold and magic items. All right, we got that one. What do you do if your entire party says they don't want any chance of permadeath? Well, I mean, so this depends on you and the game you want to run. If I had a group that came to me and told me that, I probably would tell them that I'm not the dungeon master for you. I am the wrong dungeon master to run this game for you because I don't like playing that way, and my games are not that way. So you should all go find a different dungeon master. I'm just being honest with you. So like that's probably what I would do, but that's because that's not how I want to run my games, and I have the right as well to have direction on how I run my games, you know, because if I'm not having fun and I'm not enjoying the game, then that game's not going to last very long. So I just personally, I wouldn't run the game. I would not run the game. I would pass. I would tell them, I'm sorry guys, I'm not a good fit for you. You know, you guys want to play a different game than I want to run, and we are not a good fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a comment against you or against me or anything. It happens, but I'm not the right DM for you. So I would pass on that and ask them to go find a different DM. And then I would find other players, which would take me like a day or two to find players, because dungeon masters are in short supply. Everybody wants to play, but nobody wants to run the game, which I don't understand, because dungeon mastering is way more fun than being a player. But I don't know. I guess it's just one of those mysteries of the world that I'll never get. No, but as far as what you should do, I mean, that really just depends on your personal preferences and what you want to do or don't want to do. You know, like if you just don't want to run a game that doesn't have permadeath and that's not the game you want to run, then I don't know, don't run it. You know, I personally would not waste time trying to convince players that permadeath is a good game mechanic and that that it has value in the game, because it does. I've done videos talking about why death is important and why it makes the game better. But if you have players that hate that idea and just don't want to play where there's permadeath, then I don't know that I personally would not spend a whole lot of time trying to convince them otherwise. I might state my case for it, and when they're just like, nah, we don't want to do that, we don't want any death, well, then I would probably pass and just move on and find new players. And the reason that I wouldn't waste a whole lot of time on it is that, you know, I don't want to spend that time discussing it with people who are probably, you know, I might do a cursory try at trying to explain to them why death is important and why it's helpful in a game and why it makes the game better. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to convince them. They're probably set in what they want to do, and I'm set in what I want to do. And so it's just easier for them to find a different, well, it's easier for me to find different players. They might spend quite some time finding a dungeon master because there are so few dungeon masters. But as the dungeon master, I'm not too concerned about it. I have a very high probability of being able to find the players, the type of players that I want to run games for. You know, the types of players that enjoy the types of games that I run. So I'm not too concerned about that personally. So I don't know. If you're the dungeon master, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on it. You know, if you don't want to run that game, then just don't run that game and find different players. It's pretty simple, you know. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there. You could just run that game for them. Like, let's pretend they're your friends or something. Well, then I don't know. You can try to convince them, and they may or may not be convinced. Or you could just run that game and just run a game that doesn't have permadeath. And what a trivial game, you know, where their characters can't die. Death is meaningless. They can't die, you know. And so there's nothing in the game that's actually dangerous. There is no real challenge in the game because there's no permanent death. It doesn't matter what stupid decisions they make. It doesn't matter what bad choices they have. It doesn't matter the bad dice rolls. It doesn't matter what monsters they go against. They just can't die. They can never die. So that is just a meaningless, pointless game of chucking dice and probably making bad decisions because you know that there are no consequences. And I don't know, that doesn't interest me a whole lot. So I would pass on that. But maybe you're okay with that and then run the game, you know. But I don't think it's worth having a big discussion or argument over because there are other players out there. There's truckloads of players out there that you can find to get in your games. With the Kickstarter books, Layers of Legends, Loyalty and Lament, how well do you think they'll work with 1D&D when it releases? Nobody knows. Nobody has any freaking clue what they're going to come up with 1D&D. You know, like, we have no idea what the final system is going to look like. So it's impossible to answer that question. It's literally impossible. I mean, okay, official response. According to Wizards of the Coast, 1D&D will be completely backwards compatible with 5th edition. So everything created for 5th edition should work with 1D&D. Now, if you believe that, great. Then well, everything that we make will be completely compatible with 1D&D, and there you go. You know, but what are you gonna do? So I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think that this is what's going on. The feeling that I get. And so the answer to your question is I can't tell you because 1D&D doesn't exist yet. It hasn't been released. We don't know. My guess is that you can probably still use almost all the content, but you might have to adjust for challenge rating and difficulty. Because what they come out, the final classes and character options for 1D&D will almost assuredly be way more powerful than existing 5th edition character options. And so probably what you're going to have to do is make things more challenging. And any existing 5th edition content that you want to run for a D&D, 1D&D characters, you're just going to have to increase the difficulty. That would be my guess. Hopefully it's as simple as that, which isn't terribly complex in all honesty to do that. So hopefully it's as simple as that. But the thing is we don't know what 1D&D is going to be, and I feel like this is what they're doing. They say it's going to be backwards compatible so that people don't get into an uproar and they don't stop buying current 5th edition products, because if they say new edition is coming out and it's not backwards compatible, then people are going to stop buying current 5th edition products from Wizards of the Coast, and their sales are going to go like this. Because who wants, I mean, there'll still be some people that will buy 5th edition content because they like 5th edition, but there are some people that want the 1D&D or want a new edition that are going to stop buying content, you know, because it'll be outdated and will be worthless theoretically. And so they don't want to say that it won't be backwards compatible for those reasons. So they're saying it's backwards compatible. So essentially what's going to happen is, this is my prediction. Over the course of playtesting, oh my gosh, I need to do a video about why this is not playtesting too, because what they're doing is not playtesting. So over the course of playtesting, essentially what's going to happen is things are going to get tweaked and changed and tweaked over the next like year or so, or however long this playtesting lasts. Things are going to keep getting changed. And then they're going to have a final 1D&D that comes out. And if it's not really backwards compatible, and if there's a lot of friction there, then I guarantee you this is going to be the official response. Hey, our original intention with 1D&D was that it would be 100% backwards compatible to 5th edition. However, over the course of playtesting and listening to feedback from you, our customers, we ended up with a version of 1D&D that fits more of what you wanted from the product and is less backwards and compatible than we actually wanted it to be. And so we do apologize for that, but we're happy to be giving you the product that you really want. And so if I were orchestrating this whole thing at the high level and I wanted to cover my butt and like manage things now so that people could find it palatable, but also on the back end, when something comes out that's not compatible, that is the excuse I will use every day of the week because it hits all the points, right? It like distances you from the responsibility because you were trying to make it backwards compatible, but you know, the customers wanted something else. And so we wanted to give the customers what they wanted, you know, so it's not really our fault. And you are kind of pushing the blame on the customers who were giving you the feedback on this stuff. But at the same time, you're saying, but it's okay because we gave you what you wanted, right? And that's cool, right? I mean, you do want what you want, right? So I don't know. I feel like that's like in my little evil brain, like if I were an evil corporation that just wanted to manipulate things, you know, so that I could like, you know, get what I want and make Hasbro happy. Like that's kind of in my brain what I would do, if that makes sense. So I don't know. It's not playtesting. Okay. Why is it not playtesting? I'll tell you why it's not playtesting. So what, in my opinion, what they're actually doing is they are collecting feedback from people. They're throwing out options and different changes and stuff, and people are reading them. Some people are actually using them, but then they're giving them feedback. They're giving them feedback on stuff. But it's not really playtesting because I don't think you can actually playtest a rule set unless you have all of it. Like I don't think, like for instance, if we're playtesting these new 1D&D class changes in an existing 5th edition module, well, you know, there are a lot of things in that module that probably are not the same as they will be in 1D&D. Like some of the rules are changing. And so I feel like if you really want to playtest, you need to have the rules in their totality together, right? Have them, a draft of them decided upon, and then you give the rules in their totality to people and say, go forth and playtest, and then give us feedback on the totality of the rules. People playtest and give feedback. Okay, great. We're gonna think and okay, we're gonna tweak the rules. Okay, here is draft 2 of the rules in their totality. Playtest now and see if these points of friction and the different things that weren't working, see if they're better, right? And then people playtest, and you want to give them guidelines on things to test as well. You know, like these were the biggest things that had problems in draft 1. Take a look at these and see if it works better, please. Like you want to have some directed playtesting too. You want to have general playtesting, but there needs to be directed playtesting too. Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? You know, we revamped the challenge rating system. How does it work? Give us some direct feedback on this. And then there might be several drafts of the rules in their totality where you playtest them, you know, and then they do revisions and stuff. But right now we're just getting like little piecemeal rules thrown at us. And it feels more like we're just giving feedback on our initial impressions of the rules. And many of the people, I guarantee you, in their little surveys and stuff, they're just giving after having read the rules and probably watched YouTube videos talking about how broken they are. There's one YouTuber where everything is like, look how broken the rogue is, it's insane, you know. After watching these videos and stuff, people are probably just giving feedback. But how many people are actually playtesting it, you know? And is a few weeks enough time to actually playtest something? Like how long do people, I mean, most people play DnD like maybe once a week, probably every other week. So it's not a whole lot of time. So I don't think they're getting actual playtesting. They're getting people's initial reactions and their feedback. They're getting their impressions on things, you know? So I don't know. I just don't feel like that's actually playtesting. I feel like that is more a mechanism to warm people up to the idea of 1D&D. It is a way to transition to a new edition that perhaps is more palatable to people and will lead to less like pushback perhaps than if they were to just say, hey guys, we are working on a new edition. It's called 1D&D. It's coming out in 2024. And yeah, just look forward to that. Like, can you do that? But what if they don't say anything, right? They don't say anything. They don't tell you there's a new edition coming or 1D&D because they're getting rid of editions, right? They're no longer editions. Yeah, because we believe that. So they're going to get rid of, so they don't tell you at all. Pretend they didn't tell us. And then all of a sudden in 2024, they release to us, 1D&D is here. We've made a new one, you know, and then people are really upset, you know, because they, you know, oh my God, that would not work either, you know? And so I think that out of those three options, help, like the option of saying, hey, we want to build the next non-edition with the D&D community and get your feedback and have you help playtest it so that the final version that we come up with is something that the entire community wants. That like thought process and that way of rolling it out and bringing it about is probably way more palatable to the average D&D player and their customer, I feel like. And it's a higher chance of things being met with more welcoming arms as opposed to resistance, you know? So I feel like it's probably just the tactic, right, that you use to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible, you know? So I don't know. That's kind of what's in my brain right now. And I don't know, I might be wrong. Maybe like playtesting should be done differently. Maybe the way they're doing playtesting is the right way to do it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on that particular thing. It just seems kind of wonky to me, is all. All right, let's go on to the next question. My players don't make plans or try to work together in combat. Sucks to be them. They've gotten their butts kicked on several occasions. Mine have too. But they never try to do plans. Thank you for sharing. I don't see a question there, but I have players who do the exact same thing. Oh, I answered that one too. How do you pace a one-shot to ensure it reaches a satisfying conclusion within the time constraints? You plan it properly, and two, you get rid of stuff on the fly that you don't have time for. That's it. Those are the two steps. Plan it well, and then as you're playing the game, if you're starting to run out of time, make sure you just get rid of stuff. Those monsters aren't there. That room doesn't have monsters in it. They're gone, you know? And you try to have them get to the final boss when there's about 1 hour left. That's your goal, because the final boss confrontation, which is usually a fight, is going to take about an hour. It just usually does. So pace things so they get to the final boss about an hour into the game. They have that final boss fight, and then things will wrap up and be on time roughly. Now, you need to plan a little bit too. So the typical one-shot game is about 4 hours. So I'm going to talk to that because at convention games are about 4 hours. So when I think one shot, I'm thinking about a 4-hour game. So in 4 hours, this is what I can get done as a dungeon master, or I should put it that way. This is what I would expect a typical adventuring party could get through in about 4 hours. They're going to have one combat. They're going to have several exploration scenes where they're going through different rooms and they're finding stuff. They're probably going to have one social encounter that's a planned social encounter. And then they're going to have a final boss fight. That right there is probably going to do me for 4 hours. That'll do it right there. One combat, some exploration, which is several different rooms that they explore, a social interaction, which could also be a puzzle or something. You might have a puzzle here. Exploration might be a puzzle too. Social interaction, and then a boss fight. That's it. Now, usually what I'll do too is I will have one other encounter that is probably going to be a fight that I'll have in here as well. But that extra encounter, I'm ready to pull it and not use it. So that's the trick. That's the trick. You have to plan it well, which means don't put a lot in there. And then there's some stuff you have to be willing to pull out if they're going too slow, because some players go slower than others. But make sure that you get to the final boss fight by about an hour in, and you got to watch the clock, and you got to on the fly adjust things in your dungeon to make sure that they have enough time to get through things. Those are the tricks right there for pacing a one shot to make sure you get done on time. What 1 DnD rules, if any, have you personally play tested, and what did you think? I'm not doing it. I'm not participating in it. I will read them. I will think about them. I will get my team's input on the rules, and I will make videos on them. But I'm not screwing up my existing games, changing rules and stuff. It's not happening. Right now, I only run 2 DnD 5th edition games. One is for my patrons who pay, and I don't want to screw the game up for them. And the other is for my youngling group. They're teenagers in high school, and I don't want to overcomplicate things for them. I don't want to mess around with that. And the other group, which was my Curse of Strahd group, we're going to Pathfinder 2nd edition, and so we're not even using D&D for our next game. So I'm not messing around with that stuff. I'll just do what everybody else is doing. I'll talk about them and make videos on them because they get lots of views, you know. But that's it, baby. Once they give us an actual complete rule set, then that's a different story. Maybe we'll do something there. But this whole piecemeal thing, man, I don't want to jerk my players around like that. Some say martial classes are getting nerfed currently, based on current 1 DnD material. Is there anything you want to see to come out of the martial classes in general in 1 DnD? You know, the only thing I really want for martial classes, my big wish for martial classes is that they can do something interesting. I played an archer once. Guess what I did? I shoot 2 arrows. Your turn, Luke. I shoot 2 arrows. Your turn, Luke. I shoot 2 arrows. This is crazy. It's crazy. You're a fighter. I mean, you're a fighter. I swing my sword. At least with a fighter, you can maybe shove somebody, or you can shove them and grapple them. You can push them back. You have a few options. You might try to disarm them and then take their weapon away from them. So at least like melee classes, you have a few options. But a lot of times those options are strategically inferior to just doing damage. A lot of times the best thing you can do in combat is just do damage. So I would love to see martial classes have interesting things they can do that isn't just swing a sword or shoot a bow. That would make the game way more interesting to me if I were a player, or as a player, you know. Now as a dungeon master, like, honestly, I don't care what they do to the stupid classes because I don't play those classes. I play monsters, I play bad guys. And those are what interest me. Hopefully the classes are fun, so my players will enjoy playing them, you know, but I don't really have a whole lot of skin in the game because I'm not a player. I don't like being a player usually. I'd rather just be a dungeon master. So yeah, but I would like martial classes to be more interesting because occasionally I am a player, and when I am a player, they're really boring. What would you suggest as a way to get players engaged in other ways besides combat? I have an online group where half just only seem to interact during combat, but not in exploration or social interaction. Yeah, I mean, yes, because players have different interests. Not all players like the same thing. Like, I had a player once, Nigel, his real name was Aaron, and he mostly just engaged in combat. Sometimes there would be social interactions that he would engage with, but a lot of times he would kind of tune out a little bit. unless it was combat, because combat it looked like the thing that he enjoyed the most. And so I don't view that as a negative thing against the player. Like, I'm not trying to make sure that he engages in every facet of the game and is fully vested in all gameplay and is enjoying and loving all of it. No, people have different things they like about the game. There are different things that interest them, and some things are just boring to them. When I play the game, I love combat and I love social interactions. Exploration is boring as crap to me. And puzzle solving, oh my gosh, I hate solving puzzles. Like, I will sit there and just be quiet and hope the other players will solve the puzzle. And if they're taking too long, I will finally help. And I'm pretty smart, and so I usually can solve puzzles okay-ish. I just don't like doing it. And so I'll usually just sit there and wait for somebody else to do it because I don't want to. You know, that happened once in a game a while ago with my buddy Joe. Like, they were having trouble solving a puzzle, and I was just waiting for them because I didn't want to screw around with it. And they couldn't solve it. And then I was finally like, okay, Joe, explain to me again how it works. And then I think I got lucky or something, but I did solve it fairly quickly, but I just don't like it. So anyway, that's not the point. Your players all have different interests. Some of them are going to like combat more. Others are not going to like social interactions or exploration. And that's okay. That's okay. That is why the recommendation is to build balanced adventures, balanced games where there is combat, where there is exploration, and where there is social interaction. So that way there's always something that players can engage with. Now, maybe you're in a combat that lasts for a while and that's not your cup of tea. Well, you know, that's okay, because guess what? There's going to be other things going on in the game session besides just combat. And that's just life. And so my suggestion is to build balanced adventures that have a little bit of everything so that your players know that they're going to have something that they enjoy doing. And don't worry about it too much if they don't like all of the game elements. You don't try to convince them that they should, right? Force them to enjoy something they don't like. Like, I'm never going to like broccoli. You can't make me enjoy broccoli. Not because I don't like the taste of it, but because it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, it literally makes me sick. No matter what you do is going to convince me to eat broccoli, because it gets me sick every time and I feel horrible. I'm not doing it, you know? So it's like, you don't worry about trying to convince people. That's probably a bad analogy, but don't worry about trying to convince people that they should like something or that there's a part of the game they should engage with. I think you're better off just making sure that you have lots of different things that appeal to different player types and different player interests. And just accept that not everybody's going to like everything. Now, you might ask your players, hey, you know, Joe, I noticed that, you know, when we're in social interactions, you kind of tune out and you're not too interested. Is that because, like, is there something that I can do to make them more interesting for you? Or do you just not like social interactions? And Joe might just be like, yeah, I don't care about it, dude. Like, the other players really love talking with the NPCs and I don't really care about it a whole lot. And so I just let them talk and I'm happy with it. You know, there's nothing you're doing wrong. I just don't like doing it. Or Joe might tell you, no, here's what I don't like about social interactions, you know, and then he'll give you some valuable feedback. And then you'll find a way that you can improve your social interactions for Joe and potentially for other players. So I think it is worth asking players why they don't enjoy certain parts of the game or why they don't engage in it, because you might get some useful feedback that can help you improve as a dungeon master. So don't exclude that idea, right? Because maybe there's a way you can make it better. But if there isn't, you know, then it's okay if they don't engage and love every part of the game. That's just the way it's life. I like the taste of broccoli. I do. It makes me sick to my stomach. It literally makes me... My mom made broccoli soup and dropped it off today. I got home from the gym and my wife was here and my wife was like, oh yeah, your mom dropped off some soup and stuff. And I was like, oh, really cool. And she's smiling. She's like, yeah, you're going to like it. And I was like, no, I'm not. What is it? And she's like, broccoli. And I'm just like, geez, the thing that I can't eat. Like, I can eat, I think, almost all food. I can eat everything. There's nothing that bothers me that I remember offhand. But broccoli literally makes me sick. It just makes me sick. It feels like food poisoning. Whoever's been food poisoned, you know what that feels like. It's miserable. Broccoli makes me feel the same way, and I don't know why. It's really weird. What change in 1D&D so far do you like the most? I think I like the influencing another creature is now an action. I like that it's an action. And I also like that they're going with static DCs. I think that that's really cool. That's going to make my life easier. I probably many times used static DCs anyway, because usually you roll an insight check. It's like their persuasion or their deception versus my insight check. I never really liked that a whole lot. I like the idea of having static DCs. Well, actually, no, not static DCs. I would use dynamic DCs. I, as the dungeon master, would decide how hard it is to convince somebody of something. Like, let's pretend there's a shopkeeper and you're the barbarian and you're intimidating the shopkeeper to give you a better deal. Now, a shopkeeper doesn't want to die, right? And they're afraid of you. And so it might not be that hard to get a discount. But if you're a barbarian trying to intimidate, like, a beholder to surrender, a beholder is not intimidated very easily. And so the DC for that is going to be way higher. So I would use dynamic DCs based upon the situation, based upon what the player is trying to achieve, and based upon like the NPC's attitude, like whether they're friendly, neutral, or hostile. And so I would advocate more for dynamic DCs as opposed to static ones, which were what were in the most recent one, D&D. But I can see that, you know, especially for newer dungeon masters, a static DC is probably easier to implement. But I will never use a static DC. I will always use dynamic ones based upon, you know, how challenging I feel a particular thing should be. Oh, I need to take, okay, we're supposed to take a break. Oh my goodness. All right, I need to give my cats some cat treats. They've been swarming around here. You wanna see something cool? Check this out. Look at them, they're swarming. They're like sharks. They're like sharks. Okay. Before I give my cats their treats, I want to remind you guys that we do have a giveaway going on. Hopefully there's a link in the chat where you can sign up for the giveaway. We also will draw the winners of the giveaway tonight at the end of the stream. You don't have to be here to win, so you can still sign up for it even if you don't think you're going to make it. And we're raising money for Canines for Warriors. It's a charitable organization that helps provide service dogs to veterans. So if you would like to donate to them, there's a link in the chat where you can do so. 100% of all tips will go toward Canines for Veterans. Our goal is to get $500 for these dudes, and then we'll do a nice big donation for them. So I always like helping out veterans and our service folk. So if you'd like to help out with that, you're welcome to. And then I'm gonna give my cats some treats, and then we'll pick up after that. So it's cat time. All right, go to the cat cam. You guys ready for this? Yeah? It's been like 2 weeks since they've had their treats. I took like a streaming break because of LayerCon. All right, you guys ready? You guys ready for this? All right, I'll be back. What are you guys doing? Get our snack. I'm gonna give my dog a snack too. You want a snack, Zoe? All the cats are getting their snacks. It's a doggy doggy. It's a doggy doggy. What happened to my... Oh. All right. Nathaniel Benj, thank you for the $15 tip. I appreciate that. If you say my last name, it's like the eating disorder. Binge? Oh, Nathaniel Binge. Thank you, dude. I appreciate the tip, man. That's going toward Canines for Warriors. Lord God, thank you for the $5 tip. Appreciate that, dude. Also going toward Canines for Warriors. And then, oh, super chat from Lord God. Which villain did you enjoy DMing the most and why? What villain did I enjoy DMing the most? Oh gosh. You know, I remember there was I did a beholder at one point. I had a beholder that was a lot of fun to play because I made the final boss fight was like in this series of tunnels and stuff where the beholder was really hard to get at because it was floating all over the place and its eye rays were hitting them and stuff. That was a lot of fun. That fight was a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go with that. That was the thing that came to my mind. I didn't have a lot of fun with Strahd. That wasn't a whole lot of fun for me. I don't know why. It just wasn't. Gamemaster says, would you recommend I buy Lair magazine issues 1 through 10 or Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore? They're supposed to contain the material from those issues. Is there enough material that it would be worth getting both? So don't get both. For sure, don't get both. You want to get the Kickstarter. You want to get Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore, 100%. Because Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore are 2 books for the Kickstarter, have everything from issues 1 through 12, plus additional content that we created as part of the Kickstarter stretch goals. And the content was revised and improved through our editorial process too. So I would definitely go for the Kickstarter. And here's the thing too, Lair magazine is a digital publication. When we do our Kickstarters, those are print. And so if you want physical books, then the Kickstarter is the way to go if you want to get the physical books. So I would say go for the Kickstarter. That would be my personal opinion on that. This is really hot tea. My D&D group is very loud and does not calm down. I have a semi-serious campaign and I don't want to become a group that's all talk and no play. How do I calm them down? Oh, you mean they only talk? They only spend time talking? Jeez. I'm trying to think, what would I do? What would I do? Because I think I know what you're talking about. The group that gets together and they just want to joke around and talk. They'll talk about movies, they'll talk about sporting events, they'll talk about all that kind of stuff. And they never get down to business. They never actually want to play the game and stuff. So, I mean, in my games, there is that talking period. You see, it's important at the beginning of a D&D game when you just get together to allow that talking period. It could be 15 minutes or something where they just get caught up and they talk about different stuff and they joke around. They talk about things that have nothing to do with D&D, right? Like, I think that's a very social the important aspect of the game, allowing them that time to talk, you know. And it helps you develop relationships too, and you get to know each other. And so there's a lot of value in that. So in my games, that happens because I'm getting my stuff set up. I'm setting my stuff on the table. I'm getting the cameras and stuff set up, and that takes some time. And so for, I don't know, at least probably 15 minutes, more like a half an hour, players are just talking to each other, you know. But then when it's time to run the game, you know, I call order and everybody ceases and we run the game. And then during the game, there's very little talk, like about non-game related stuff. And so I think that what I would do if I had a table that wouldn't get down to business is I would make sure that I'm allowing them time at the beginning to do that non-D&D chatter. And then I need to call order, and I'm probably going to have to explain to them, hey guys, listen, this is what's up. Okay. We've had, like, in your case, right? We've had several game sessions where very little D&D gets played, and there's a lot of talking about a lot of other stuff. So I personally would like to play D&D, and I would like to see a lot less of that talk and chatter. Before the game begins is fine, but once we start the game, like, I really just want to play D&D. And this side talk about sporting events and what you saw on Netflix and, like, you know, I don't know, whatever and whatnot, like that, I don't want that happening during the game. When we're playing the game, I want to be playing the game. Like, that's what I would like to have happen in this game. You know, that's like what I'm looking for, you know, and propose that to your players, you know, and see what they say, you know. And I don't know, I'm thinking, so the players are going to react one way or the other, right? They might just be like, oh yeah, you're right, you know, okay, we'll try to do better and not, you know, and focus more on the game, and then things might get better. I don't know. The players might also just be like, well, you know, D&D is okay, but like, we really just like talking to each other and hanging out. And so, you know, we don't really want to stop the side conversations and talking, because that's what we enjoy. That's the most fun part of the game for us. The game is getting together and talking, and the game is just kind of a reason for us to get together, you know. And so they might not, so you might have that conversation with them, and they might not, you know, come around, so to speak, and like get on board, so to speak. And if they don't, then it's probably worth considering that if it's more important to them to have these non-D&D related conversations than to actually play the game. So there are a few things going through my mind. They might just not really care that much about D&D, and they really just want to hang out and talk. In that case, you don't need to play D&D. They could just go hang out and talk, right? It doesn't need to be a D&D game. It might be a different game that doesn't involve so much concentration or something. And if you don't, and that might not involve you. Like, if you want to play D&D, then maybe that's not your group, and you find a different group that actually wants to play D&D. Because a lot of times this happens with friends a lot. When you establish a D&D group with friends that you know, a lot of times they don't take it very seriously, because D&D to them, it's not they're not there to really play D&D. They're there because you invited them and you're all a bunch of friends. And D&D really serves as a reason to get together and hang out. But whether you play D&D a whole lot or you don't, or you play a different game, it doesn't really matter to them. They're there because you invited them, and it's a good reason to hang out with friends. And so they're not super invested in the game. This happens a lot when you invite friends to play the game with you. When you invite strangers to play the game with you, in my experience, strangers have never been like that. They're there to play D&D. They don't know you. Like, they're literally just there to play D&D. So all of my games have been formed from strangers, and they're all invested in the game, and they're there to play the game. Now, many of them, as we've played together for years now, we have become friends. But guess what? We're still there to play the game. And so when the game starts, the game starts. And so where am I going? Maybe you have that conversation, try to talk with them so that they can try to get rid of all the conversation and stuff, so you can actually play the game. But recognize that they might not be there to play the game. They might really just be there to hang out and talk and have fun. And they might not really care about the game as much as you do, and they might not really want to stop all of the talking and stuff to focus more on your game. because the game means a lot to you, but it doesn't mean it means a lot to them. And you might not be able to convince them that it should mean more to them, you know. Another thing worth considering as well, and I'm going to throw this out there, is that if people aren't super interested in playing the game and they're more interested in talking about other things and hanging out, it's worth considering how fun your game is for your players. Because if you're running a really fun, awesome game, there's a higher likelihood they're going to pay attention and want to play your game. If you're running a game that's not so great, there's a higher likelihood that they're not going to want to pay attention, that they're not going to want to play the game, and they're more going to want to just talk and goof around. So it's worth considering whenever you have players that are leaving your games a lot, whenever you have players that don't want to pay attention or they're goofing around, you know, it's always worth considering how good of a game is my game. You know, if my players are constantly leaving and I have a high turnover, am I running a good game? If my players don't pay attention or they're goofing around, am I running a good game? And that is perhaps not the most useful question, but better than that is, how can I improve my game? How can I make my game more fun so that players stick around and they stop leaving? How can I make my game more fun and interesting so my players don't want to just talk and goof around, but they want to pay attention more and actually play the game? And so I think that's a useful question for the Dungeon Master as well, because it's easy for us to just blame players, but I think we should also look at ourselves and consider how fun our games are, you know, and how we can improve them, because it's not always just the player's fault. You know, like, I've been in lots of really bad games and the game masters were just horrible. I've left games before because the game master was not doing a good job, or at least the game they were running did not appeal to me. Maybe somebody at that table liked that game, but I sure didn't. And so I left early, you know, I gave some bullcrap excuse. Actually, I probably didn't give an excuse. I probably just said, sorry, I gotta go. And then I left. Because I don't like lying, even if it's what you're supposed to do in those sorts of situations. So, but I've left games, and I've also sat in really bad games too, because I just wanted to see all of the crazy bad stuff that the game master was gonna do, you know. So players leave games and players don't pay. Like, there was this one game I was in, this was a convention like 2 or 3 years ago, and the game master was abysmal, absolutely horrible, but the players were awesome. One of the players was playing a bard, and he was literally singing songs at the table. Like, in combat and out of combat, he'd be casting a spell and he'd be strumming and singing a song. Like, literally, he'd be singing. And I was like, this guy's awesome. This is an amazing bard. He's role-playing this bard. It is just, And then there was another player that I got along with really well, and we were talking a lot and stuff and joking around and stuff. But we were interacting a lot with each other, and we were making the game fun for us because of our interactions. It had nothing to do with the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master was doing an absolutely horrible job, you know, but we made it fun because we were talking to each other and stuff like that, you know. So I don't know, it's something to consider, something to think about, you know. So, okay. I think I've talked about that question enough. There you go. Sorry, I left my toaster running. I got to go. Yeah. Duct tape stops chatter. Yes, there you go. Duct tape. Duct tape. What's your opinion on wizards being able to start at first level with medium armor and shield training? I think it's stupid. That's what I think. I think wizards in full armor is stupid. The person who splashes one cleric so they can wear plate mail and then everything else is wizard, it's just like, it's extreme metagaming. So I think it's dumb. It's just min-maxing and metagaming, you know, and stuff like that. So I don't like it. What pages do you actually have bookmarked in the Dungeon Master Guide? And isn't it easier to look things up on DnD Beyond? No. Looking things up on D&D Beyond is miserable. Have you tried looking things up on D&D Beyond before? Like, their search functionality leaves much to be desired. So no, I actually can usually find things faster looking through a physical book than trying to find things on D&D Beyond. Like, yeah. I know you have everything on D&D Beyond. Yeah, I do, but I can find things way faster in my books. D&D Beyond is good for a couple things. It's good for building characters quickly, and when I'm running adventures, I have the different monsters and their stat blocks opened up on different tabs, and so I can find my monster stat blocks very, very fast. Because they have an encounter building tool, which actually does, the search there does work pretty well, and you can find your monsters really quickly. But most of the other stuff is not ideal on D&D Beyond. So what do I have bookmarked? Okay, let's look at my bookmarks. So some of you ask why I have this coffee cam. This is why I have the coffee cam, so that I can do this sort of thing. So I have a bunch of bookmarks up here, so let's just start going through them. The first one is traps. This is my traps bookmark. It has the page where I find all the information on the difficulty stuff for traps when I create traps. The next one is, it looks like it's potions. I have a bookmark on the potions page, probably because we reference it a lot during the game. So that's the bookmark. It's a little old. It's seen better days. And then I have a note here too about prices for potions. What the prices? Yeah, actually the prices aren't even here. So I have made my own prices for the different types of potions. 50 gold pieces for a healing potion, which is normal. 200 gold pieces for a greater healing, 2,000 for a superior healing, and then 5,000 for a supreme healing potion. Next bookmark, combat options. So the combat options, this is the bookmark. Combat options, that's where you have stuff like, the ones I really use it for are climbing onto a bigger creature, disarming, marking. I don't even use marking. I don't use marking because these are all optional rules. Overrunning, I use that rule. Shove aside, I use that one, and tumble, I use that one as well. And so those are the combat options I use for the Dungeon Master's Guide, and my players can use them obviously as well. And then I have, I think I just have one more. Oh, this one right here is, it's not, it doesn't say anything, but it goes to these random tables at the back for dungeons and stuff. And I don't actually roll on these tables, but when I am creating a dungeon or a castle or whatever it is, these tables list the types of rooms that you might put in your dungeon. And this listing is super useful for me to create a dungeon and have it contain a variety of different locations. You know, like a kennel, a kitchen, a library, a prison, a robing room, a stable, storage place, a strong room or vault, a torture chamber, a trophy room, a latrine or bath, a well for drinking water. I mean, it's just super useful, and I can create variety, and I don't have to think too much. I can just look at a table and pick things that I want. I don't usually roll on them. I just pick stuff. So those are the only things. Oh, no, I do have one more thing bookmarked in my Dungeon Master Guide. This is a small bookmark. It simply says E. It just has the letter E there. And these are the rules for creating encounters. So the biggest rules that I reference for creating encounters were probably, actually, I don't even use these anymore because I use D&D Beyond to do all my calculations these days. But I used to use all of these tables here to calculate my adventuring day mechanics, to know how many adjusted experience points should go into an adventuring day. I don't actually use this anymore because I use D&D Beyond for it. It's faster. But these rules I used to calculate everything manually before D&D Beyond was a thing, or at least before I had it. So I think those are the bookmarks in my Dungeon Master Guide. Okay, there we go. Whee! I got that. How do you feel about players wanting to cast spells silently with a stealth check? No. I never let them do it since there are subclasses and classes designed to do just this. And that is exactly why you shouldn't allow it. Let me push this button. So when you allow anybody to just roll a stealth check to cast a spell silently, you are screwing over the sorcerer who takes subtle spell meta magic. You're screwing over people who specifically have class features and stuff that allow them to cast spells silently without being detected. Casting a spell, it needs to be done in a normal speaking voice. You need to have the proper intonations and stuff for that magic to work, and that's how it's described in the book. And so players want to circumvent that because they want to not be detected while they're casting a spell. And you can't do that with a stealth check. A stealth check is you moving silently, or you're using cover to be unnoticed. But you can't make your voice stealthier when you're like intoning a spell, you know, like if anything, you could say you might use a deception check to make it sound like you're casting a spell is actually you talking normally. That would be a little bit different. That's like trying to cover it up. That's way more reasonable than using a stealth check to cover up casting a spell. This is an example of players trying to overreach. Players trying to do something that is too much and goes too far, primarily because it invalidates other class features. And I would tell, you know, if my players were to argue for something like this, my response, I would tell them what I just told you, but I would also add on to it. Do you want me to do the same thing to you? Because if you're going to start casting your spells stealthily, you better believe that I'm going to do the same thing. And do you want enemies catching you unawares all the time because they are stealthily casting spells that you can't hear? Because it goes two ways, man. And if you guys get access to something that's probably pretty powerful, you better believe I'm going to do the same, man. I will do the same. So that's something I tell my players too. And that whenever I have a player who's trying to overreach and get a level of power that they know they probably shouldn't have, like I tell them that, and that's usually enough for them to be like, yeah, you're right. I don't want you doing that. Okay, we're not gonna forget about it. Forget I brought it up. I noticed you're switching to Pathfinder. Have you taken a look into Starfinder, and or have you run a game in outer space? I've never looked at Starfinder. I don't think I've run a game in outer space. How would you go about making sure it doesn't seem like a PC is being favored because they have a backstory that ties into the plot more than others? You know, that's hard because sometimes players don't really make backstories at all, or they might not make backstories that you can use very easily. So you might have a couple backstories that you can easily figure out ways to tie it into the main plot, but there might be some where you're just like, I don't know how to even do this, you know? So you might try to give them a little something, an adventure or an encounter or something based on their backstory. But it might be hard for you to tie a backstory into the main plot because it didn't give you much. They didn't give you any hooks, anything you can really use, and you're just not sure, you know? So the best you can probably, I mean, you can try to do your best, right? But ultimately you're probably going to fail because it's just, you can't do everything, right? I probably would address it, and I would just tell my players and be like, hey guys, I want to let you know that I am trying my best to use stuff from your backstories in the game. But I also want to let you know that some backstories are easier for me to incorporate than others. So if you find that your backstory isn't coming up a whole lot, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm just having a hard time figuring out how to incorporate it. So if that's happening, please don't feel bad. I'm not targeting you, I promise. I just, you know, I'm only so smart and I can only do so much. So I try, but sometimes I'm going to fail. And telling your players basically that, just laying it out for them. I think that's enough. I think that's all you really need to do, you know. And then you could say, hey, by the way, if you're a player whose backstory isn't coming in a whole lot and you have an idea for how it might be used more, let me know, and then I'll see what I can do. You can throw it out there so maybe they have some ideas and they can help do some of the work as well. So I wouldn't preclude that option either, and that might be helpful for you. Don't forget, guys, we do have a giveaway going on. Hopefully we can get a link in the chat so we can get folks some books and stuff and coolness. Also, we're raising money for Canines for Warriors. They are a nonprofit charity that basically takes dogs and trains them as service animals for veterans. Folks who might have PSTD, who might be disabled, stuff like that, who basically need dogs, service dogs, to help them out in their lives. And so our goal is to get $500. All tips go toward Canines for Warriors. So if you'd like to help some veterans get some doggies to help them out, however they need help, then you can tip and it'll go toward that. What else was I going to say? It is all tips, 100% of all tips will go toward them. And the other cool thing about Canines for Warriors that I like as well is that most of their dogs come from what we call high kill shelters. So this happens a lot in different parts of the US. The dog population is higher than others. And in some parts, it's really hard to get people to adopt these dogs. And so a lot of these dogs might get euthanized. I know that one of the charities that I support a lot is Capital Area Humane Society here in Lansing, where I live. And what they do is they literally send like trucks or buses or something down south where there are these high kill shelters, and they take dogs from down south and they bring them up to Michigan where they can there are way more people that want to adopt dogs for whatever reason. Don't ask me how that works, but they help rescue these dogs from high kill shelters. And so that's one of the reasons I support Capital Area Humane Society. But Canines for Warriors does the same thing, where they're trying to rescue these dogs from high kill shelters and then turn them into service dogs, train them obviously, and it takes training to make a service dog, you know, and then they're helping our veterans as well, who need service dogs and need that help. And so they're doing a lot of cool stuff. So we're trying to raise money for them. If you'd like to help, please feel free to do so. How do you feel about D&D campaigns set in a non-medieval setting? Like, I don't care, you know, set your D&D campaign wherever you want to. There are rules in the Dungeon Master Guide for firearms and stuff. You could easily have it be set in a different time, you know, than medieval. It can be in present time. It could be in the future, I suppose. The rule set, like, kind of can accommodate those things. You're going to have to make up a whole bunch of stuff and add a whole bunch of things, I feel like, if you're putting it into a different time place, because, you know, if armor doesn't exist and you have different things, I don't know, you might have to do some finagling there. But like, my feelings are, I really don't care. Like, if you run your D&D game and you're set in outer space in the future, like, I'm not going to track you down and punish you for running D&D wrong. Like, whatever, you run your game where and how you want. It doesn't matter to me. My feelings are neutral about it. You know, I will say that chances are that if you're trying to run a D&D game in the future in outer space, there are probably other game systems that are better suited to that style of game. Like, for instance, Starfinder was designed to be played in outer space in the future. It might work better. Waystar is a Kickstarter that I supported a month or two ago, and it is designed for future outer space, and it's designed based on the 5th edition game mechanics. And so it's something I'm familiar with. And so I backed that Kickstarter, and I don't know when I'm going to get those books. Probably, I think they had a lot of it actually done already, so it might be kind of soonish. But anyway, my only thing I want to say is, if you want to run a game in the future or in outer space or something, or if you want to run like a cyberpunk type game, there are lots of other game systems out there, and they might work better than you trying to retrofit the D&D mechanics to fit that other type of game that you're trying to play. That's the only point I want to make. But if you want to take D&D 5th edition and retrofit it and do a bunch of home rules so that you can make it work, like, do it. Like, no, I'm not gonna track you down. It doesn't, you know, I don't have any skin in the game. Do you think the Detect Thoughts spell destroys a significant part of the social pillar in D&D when it comes to getting information from NPCs? No, I don't think it does at all. Because every time that my players have used Detect Thoughts, it has always been part of a social interaction. Because the whole thing is that you cast the spell and it allows you to detect the surface thoughts of the creature. And so my players will cast the spell so they can detect the surface thoughts, and then they'll ask questions. They'll be like, okay, so, you know, where were you yesterday? And then the creature is like thinking of an ice cream shop. I'm just making junk up. Okay, cool. Great. What flavor of ice cream did you eat? Chocolate. He thinks of chocolate. Okay, cool. They're still interrogating. They're still asking questions. Detect Thoughts doesn't allow you to literally just read their mind and delve them for everything they know. It doesn't work that way. There is a thing in Detect Thoughts where you can try to delve deeper, but there are specific rules around it. And it does help you to get a little more information about something, but it isn't just like read their entire mind and download all of the information they have. It doesn't work that way. So I have never found Detect Thoughts to ruin or negatively impact the social pillar. I found it to work very well with it and supplement it in interesting ways that have always been fun at the game table. So I've never had a problem with Detect Thoughts. Now, that doesn't mean somebody else might not have had a problem, but in my experience, almost every time somebody has a problem with a spell, it's because they aren't reading it carefully and they're not using it according to the spell description. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a question about a spell on the live stream, and we literally, they're like, my players are, it's broken. I don't know what to do. And then we go look it up and we read the spell description, and literally in one of the sentences, it solves the problem that the person was having a problem with. And it turns out that they weren't actually using the spell as it was written. Imagine that. Like there was, I don't remember details, but there was one where the players were abusing a spell and it was causing the entire campaign to just go haywire. We went and read the spell and we were like, dude, you're using the spell wrong. The spell can't do that. It literally says here, blah, 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 blah. And then we're just like, well, there you go. That's step number one. You have a spell that's causing a problem. Go read the spell. Make sure you're using it properly. That might solve your problem. Maybe it doesn't, you know, because there are loopholes and junk and stupid stuff, but a lot of times it solves the problem. Just read the spell, follow the rules. Ooh. Oh, I gotta put this here. You guys can see it. How do you handle a party that heals up between each room or encounter leading up to the boss without sending wave after wave of enemies to counteract? My party can basically 100% heal in 20 minutes. I've never had a problem with healing. Like, healing doesn't bother me. It just doesn't bother me. Because you can always have monsters do more damage, or have there be more monsters that do more damage. So players healing up doesn't bother me. Now, if they're getting all of their resources back between every encounter, that's a problem. If they're getting all their spell slots back, if they're getting all their key points back, if they're getting all of their battle master tactic things back, which I forget what they're called, their maneuvers, I think, back. If they're getting their short, what do you call it? Second wind back. If they're getting all of that back after every single encounter, especially spell slots, if they're getting all of that back after every single encounter, now that's a problem, right? Because the game was not designed to work that well when they get all of their, The unfortunate reality is that the way they designed 5th edition, it is designed for there to be an adventuring day and for there to be resource depletion over the course of that adventuring day. And when that mechanic doesn't work and there is no resource depletion, you get certain problems that happen, you know. But rules as written, you're still going to have resource depletion. Now, they might be able to heal their hit points back, but they're still going to be down key points and spell slots and other things. Magic item uses have been used up. So they're still going to have depleted resources, but they have their hit points are doing okay. Like, my players many times heal up after fights and get kind of back to full hit points. I don't have a problem with that because I know that the next fight is going to maybe deplete some hit points and it's going to deplete their resources. And I know that when they get to some of the nastier fights in the dungeon, that they're going to need those hit points. And I don't have to send waves and waves of monsters at them to pull their hit points down. I'm not trying to reduce their hit points, you know. Their resource depletion, yeah, that's part of how I design things because that's the way the game was meant to be designed. But I'm not seeking to deplete hit points as much as I'm seeking to do a lot of other things. So I don't worry a whole lot about that. Yeah. How do I introduce a new player to DnD? It's not, so just explain the basics. You are controlling a character. Let's pretend they're a fighter. You just explain how it works. I'm going to describe a situation and a scene to you, and you tell me what your character says and does. It's as easy as that. Have them sit down, give them a pre-generated character. You might have made it for them. Unless they're really gung-ho and want to make their own, that's fine, but I wouldn't make them do it because character creation is hard. And then start playing the game. And as rules come up, you explain to them what to do. Roll a d20, add this number here, okay? And then let them play for a while, and you're just helping them, walking them through the rules. If you have a veteran player that can sit next to them and help them do the same thing, that's great. After several game sessions, once they've played for a while, then you can start to explain the rules in a little more detail, so that then they're maybe going to catch on a little bit. But do not front load their game experience with explaining tons of rules. That could be a massive turnoff. Unless you have, crap, some of us are just total nerds and geeks, and that's what we want. We want to know the game mechanics, explain it to us, and we'll geek out over it, and that's cool. So get a gauge and know your player too, because maybe they do want that. But the players that I've introduced that new to the game, many of them, you could just tell that that's not what they needed or wanted. They needed a very gentle, rules light introduction to the game so they could just get playing, get the feel of it, you know, before you like throw all the rules on top of them. How do you handle players who are in the mindset that every one of your actions are set up to kill them from a DM versus PC style of play? I don't know. I mean, I'd rather think that I wouldn't care. Like, I feel like I run challenging adventures. My adventures are challenging. My combats are challenging. Ask my patrons who play D&D with me. My adventures are challenging. My combats are challenging. They get their butts kicked a lot. They win a lot, but they also have really tough fights that are, you know, there's some deaths that happen as well. And I feel like your players should know that you're not out to get them based upon your actions in the game and how you run the game. So it should just come through, you know, like your attitude and how you interact with them, you know, and how you run the game should communicate to them that you're not out to get them, that you want them to win and that you're happy when they win. You know, and that should come across in your demeanor as a dungeon master. So, I mean, you could explain to them that you're not out to get them and stuff, but actions don't mean a whole lot. I'm sorry, words don't mean a whole lot. actions mean everything. And so I would rather run a game in such a way that it's obvious to my players that I'm not out to get them, that I'm just trying to run a challenging game because it's fun when you are challenged and then you win. That victory is way more meaningful when it was hard to achieve, and when defeat or death was a possibility, that victory is more meaningful. And so I feel like I would just try. I would want to make sure that my attitude was such that it was clear to my players, and that my actions were such that it was clear to my players that I'm not out to get them, that I'm just trying to run a challenging game for them. So that's what I would do. That's kind of my thoughts around that. You could always try talking to them, but if your actions don't back up your words, then your words are meaningless. How do you deal with players wanting to use insight as a lie detector? How do you use it? So, I mean, insight isn't exactly a lie detector, but it can help you detect when somebody is being untruthful or hiding information from you, or there's something like, depending upon the roles. So if usually insight and deception is an opposed check. So the bad guy makes a deception check, and let's pretend I get a 10. The player makes an insight check, and let's say they get a 20, and the bad guy is lying to them. Well, they got a 20 versus a 10. And so I'll tell my player, yeah, you think he's lying to you. There might be some element of truth, but there's a lot of lying going on, and there's something else that he's not telling you as well. I'm going to give him that information. Now, if the bad guy gets an 18 and the player gets a 20, then I might say, yeah, a lot of what he's saying kind of adds up and makes sense, but you get this feeling that there's something else going on that he's not telling you. And so I'm going to give a less, the answers still give, because they won the check, they got a 20 versus 18. I'm still going to give them that gut feeling that there's something more, but I'm not going to outright tell them, yeah, he's lying to you and there's a whole bunch of crap going on. I'm going to be more subtle. So the difference, that difference in success, how much they succeeded by or failed by, is going to determine the information that I give them. And it's always variable, right? Like if the bad guy gets a 20 and the players roll a 5, I'm going to be like, yeah, he seems like he's being completely truthful to you, and nothing's going on. And then of course, at that point you ask yourself, well, okay, but if the player saw that they rolled a 5, then the player is going to know that they didn't actually succeed, and then there's a strong potential for metagaming. And then you get to the idea of having, a passive insight or something, or having the dungeon master roll that insight check, because the player might decide to metagame. In the same way that a player who's looking for a secret door and gets a 5 might just be like, okay, yeah, there's no secret door here, but hey, maybe you should check too, just in case, because they're metagaming, So yeah, usually I see that happening in my game tables, but I just ignore it because I don't want to roll the dice for them, and I don't want to use passive checks. And so there's a little bit of metagaming going on, but it doesn't bother me a whole lot. Not that sort of metagaming. I know it. I see it. I recognize it. Sometimes I might make a comment to my players about it. Usually not, though. Usually I'm just like, whatever. It's not worth getting worked up about. Wolfman, good night. Have a good night, Wolfman. Hope things get better, dude. Do you more often use contested checks, or do you use a set DC based on the NPC's passive deception, for example? I don't use passive things very often at all, except for perception versus a stealth check, which is what it was primarily made for. But I don't use passives a whole lot. Many times I will just use a DC as opposed to a contested check. Not always, but sometimes I will. Because sometimes, The difficulty class for trying to convince a beholder, for instance, to surrender instead of fighting should be really high. Period. End of story. Like you can't use a contested check. Like if you have your party comes and they decide that they want to try to convince the beholder to surrender instead of fighting, and you ask your players to roll a persuasion check, and then the beholder rolls what? An insight check or something, and let's pretend the beholder rolls kind of low. Or even if the beholder rolls well, they rolled like a 13, and then they get like a +2 and it's a 15. The DC is 15. And the players are probably rolling with advantage because they're helping each other. And then the social character is making the roll and they have like a +5 or a +6. You know, the chances are they're going to beat that beholder because the DC 15 is really low as a DC in this particular case. You're trying to convince a beholder to surrender. Like the DC for convincing a bad guy like a beholder to surrender should be like a 25 or a 30. It should be almost impossible. You know, a beholder's not going to, that is not a species and a creature and a monster that's going to be convinced to surrender very easily. Situations depending and circumstances might change that. So I feel like in that situation, and a contested check doesn't make sense. I would simply set a difficulty class. But I also might say it's not possible. I might not even call for a check. If they're trying to convince a beholder to surrender, I might decide as a dungeon master, this beholder, considering all the circumstances, whatever those happen to be, will not surrender. There is no chance for it. I won't even ask for a roll, which is what you should do. When something is not possible, you shouldn't even ask for a roll. And so the beholder will just say, no, I'm not surrendering. And there is no roll. If my players are like, should I roll for it? No, you don't need to roll for it. The beholder is not going to surrender. So that's something else to consider. I think my wife is upstairs talking with my mom or something. Like getting distracted because my wife is upstairs talking. Okay, but hey, it's a good time to take a break. I'm gonna give my cats some catnip and we're gonna watch them roll around and go crazy. But before I do that, I want to remind you folks that we do have a giveaway going on. Hopefully we can get a link in the chat where you can get in on that and sign up for the giveaway. We are also raising money for Canines for Warriors. If you are interested in helping support them, all tips will go to them. They provide service dogs for veterans. So we're trying to raise $500 for them. So if you'd like to contribute, you're welcome to do so. Sympaticos, what's up, dude? How you doing, man? Good to see you, buddy. All right, I'm gonna get my cats all hopped up on catnip now. All right, let's see. Who are we gonna use? We're gonna go with the penguin and George the squirrel. Let's go to the coffee cam. All right, so we have the penguin and we have some of you might recognize this. This is Bucky the beaver from Bucky's. Some of you might know what that is. It's crazy. I call it a squirrel though, because we had a pet squirrel, George, and so this is George the squirrel. Okay, and I need catnip. Oh yeah, here's our catnip. And I have catnip. So we're gonna get these guys hopped up on catnip, and then I'm getting low on catnip, man. All right, Squeaky, calm down. You're getting your catnip. And gonna get the penguin. There we go. All right. And then I'm gonna go get some coffee and I'll be right back. What the? Yeah, Dave the Hobbit. Those are all playable things. Like, Drow is literally a playable class or race, and Assassin, there is a rogue with a subclass of Assassin, and so that boy, your son, can, yeah, you said boys, yeah. Your the son that wants to do the Drow Assassin can literally be a Drow Assassin, and there are rules for that in the book. And the other one who wants to be a Tiefling Warlock, there's literally a race for Tiefling, and then there's a class called Warlock, and so the rules accommodate exactly what they want to do. What's up, Blivy? Glad you like the cat cam. Squeaky's was hogging all the action. Squirty Pie is gonna. Oh, there it goes. Squirty got jumped. That was awesome. Little guy's over here now. He's like, hey, this is nice. I like this. Hey Nate, what's up, dude? LairCon was cool. I enjoyed it. I had fun. Sorry you couldn't make it, man. My cat knocked over the treat box again. They were all over the floor. Oh, I want to show you something related to that. So these treats that I have right here, there is a version of these where the lid just pops off. And if I use the lid that just pops off, my cats will literally attack this thing until they get the lid to pop off, and then they will get into it. This one right here has a screw-on lid, which I now have to use exclusively so my cats can't get into it. And I don't always buy this one right here. I just reuse this same container, and I'll put my new cat treats in it. But if I don't have a screw-on lid, what I was doing is I was duct taping my other container. So I would duct tape the sides of it and stuff so they couldn't get into it. I'd have to like cat proof it. Otherwise they would break it open and get into all the treats. I know, I called the cat by rotating the lid, and now he's down here. Now he's down here looking at me. Where is this? Okay, there we go. Is it cliched or take anything away from players if I make all or almost all of the player characters be connected in their backstory? They didn't know they had a connection. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that would be pretty cool. And then over the course of the campaign, they somehow find these connections. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If it's cliched, I would probably, I don't know that it's a cliche, first of all. And if it is a cliche, I would probably call it a trope, which is a positive cliche. Tropes are things that you do, like meeting in a tavern is a trope, I would say, not a cliche. Because it's a game mechanics, it's a thing that you do that works really well, and you do it for good reasons. You know, the hero's journey, where somebody will start out young and unexperienced in the world, and they will go forth adventuring, and they'll meet new people and go across different lands, and they will grow, and they will get experience in life, and they will change, and they will become somebody that they weren't before. Like this whole idea of a hero's journey, which happens in tons of books, you know. It's not cliched, it's a trope. It's something that you do because it works really well for lots of reasons. And so I don't think having your players be connected is a bad thing. I wouldn't call it cliched. If anything, you could call it a trope, but I don't know that it's done a whole lot, so it might be neither of those things. But it sounds fine to me. I don't think there's any issue there. I know that before you have said that you change your monster's bonus to hit, but do you have a set amount that you increase it by, or is it just what you feel in the moment? I don't change my monster's bonus to hit a whole lot in that I can remember recently. If I do change them, I probably change their bonus to hit before the encounter. Like when I'm planning the encounter, I might decide that they need to have a higher bonus to hit. Yeah, what was the question? Do I have a set amount that I increase it by? Well, the thing that is that, like, sometimes the bonus to hit is so, like, they might have a +4 or something, and all of your players are wearing like heavy armor, so their armor classes are 18 or 20s. There's no chance you're going to hit them. And if I want to make it more challenging, then I can change their bonus to hit. But 5th edition uses bounded accuracy, so if I give them a +2, so it's a +6 to hit instead of a +4, that makes a big difference. So that might be all I need, but it's not a set amount. It's just a gut feeling of what I think they should have. But I don't change their bonus to hit a whole lot. If I'm using monsters that have a low bonus to hit, that's an intentional decision. They're usually a lower CR. And if I use monsters that have a higher bonus to hit, that's an intentional decision and they're a higher CR. So it kind of works itself out. Any strategies for getting your campaign to a conclusion? I'm running homebrew. Would love to have the campaign end rather than fizzle out. I know my problem lies big bad activities. How do you get your campaign to come to a successful conclusion? I mean, I don't know. It's never been a problem I've had to deal with, because my campaigns don't fizzle out. They end when I decide they're going to end. I mean, you need to have, I don't know, man. I'm trying to think about what do I do that makes them successful. I have to, like, kind of, you know, because sometimes there's a problem you've had before and you know exactly what you did and how you solved it, and then you can give an easy answer. But when you never had a problem before, and then somebody has that problem, and then you have to think about how you would overcome that problem, and I'm not sure offhand how you would keep a campaign from fizzling out and just have it end, you know? I mean, you have to have enough adventures. You have to have meaningful adventures, and they need to be working towards something, which is usually taking out the big bad. And if your big bad, if there's not enough lieutenants and stuff going on, then there might not be that many adventures even for the party to go through before they get to the big bad. And you don't want to needlessly draw things out if you don't have to, right? Like, if there's not a whole lot of content, then maybe they beat the big bad by level 6. And then you have another big bad that they take on from that point forward. But there's nothing to say that your campaign has to have only one big bad and they fight him at level 15 or level 20. There could be multiple big bads. You know, there could be a big bad for each tier of play. Like, my campaigns don't usually have only one big bad. They, like, at least historically they haven't. Things have always shifted and changed. So, I don't know. I don't think I can help you a whole lot. I'd have to really think about this, and I'd have to understand more about why campaigns are fizzling out. I mean, the thing is that most campaigns fizzle out because of scheduling problems. That's the number one reason that campaigns stop. It's because people's schedules, you know, or you might have one person who gets a new job and their schedule doesn't work and the group doesn't want to play unless that person can make it. And so you end up almost never playing and then you just stop playing. When the best thing to do was to say, sorry, dude, your new schedule precludes you from playing. We're going to keep on playing. Yeah, sorry, because we want to play DnD. But many times groups don't work like that, and something happens and then they can't get together, and then the whole game dies for everybody. Instead of one person missing out, everybody misses out because of scheduling problems. So most groups fizzle out for that reason. So I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer for you. I'm sorry. Ambers, welcome. Speaking of hit points, what is the hit point counter in the upper left-hand corner of the screen? Oh yeah. So this guy right here, basically every time somebody tips or super chats, they do damage to the current person. Like Gordon G has his name up here. And so if you tip or you super chat, you will do damage to him. And then if you deliver the killing blow, you will have your name right here. And so it looks like Jordan has 1,586 hit points. So if you donate $16, you will kill him and get your name up there. That's the way that works. Where's your bookshelf? It's over there now. It's over there. I moved it. I tried to set up I set up like a permanent filming area where I can just leave my equipment set up so I can save a little bit of time. So now I just have equipment set up over there. This right here was not a good place to have my equipment set up all the time. And so what I want to get is I really want to get some glass cases to put my miniatures in, because I have lots of miniatures that I store basically in tackle boxes and stuff and other types of like plastic containers, because I can't find a really good. I want a shelving. I want glass shelving with see-through glass doors. Like the shelves themselves don't have to be glass, but the doors that close over the cabinets need to be glass. Because what I want to do is I want to have like basically like a cabinet with a bunch of shelves where I can put my minis in there, and I want the doors to be glass so I can just look in and I can see all of my minis, and I can then pick out the ones I want. And it'll look cool to be on display too, because you have all your minis on display. People can see it. It just would look cool as well. The problem I'm finding is that I'm finding cabinets with glass doors, but they all have their shelves about about 18 inches apart. The shelves are almost always 18 inches apart. And that is a big waste of space for miniatures. Like I need about probably 8 inches between the shelves. I could get away with 12 inches, but that's really wasting space. I really want shelves that are about 8 inches apart and glass doors. And I need shelves. I need cabinets like that. 8 inches apart shelves with glass doors. And I am having a really hard time finding them. I spent a lot of time looking all over the internet at different places, and I could not find good cabinets that really fit my need for displaying miniatures. And there need to be doors too, because miniatures when you start getting lots of dust on your minis and like little bits of hair from cats, for instance, like that's really hard to get off your minis. And so you want them to be enclosed so they're protected from a lot of the dust and the cat hair and crap that's going to get in there. And if it doesn't have doors, then the cats will get in there and grab your minis and do horrible things to them. So you can't have that happening. But I'm having a really hard time finding what I need. So yeah. A barrister bookshelf, a curio cabinet. I mean, I think I found some like cabinets Like, let's go look, guys. We're gonna go see if we can find something. A curio cabinet. See, look at this. This is the problem. This is the shelves are too far apart. Way too far apart. Like, I could buy this, but the shelves are 14. I don't know. They're too, I can just tell by looking at it. It's too far apart. Way too far apart for the shelves. So that doesn't really work. Yeah, it's for trophies and crap. I need a mini one. All right, let's go some more. Curio cabinet. So there's one. See, these are the types of things that I was finding. I don't want something I have to hang on the wall. I do not want to hang it on the wall. I want to have it on the floor. So like, you know, this thing, the shelves are too far apart, right? Shelves are too far apart, and there are no glass doors. And this one, this is a lot better. This is a lot better, but I have to hang it on the wall. I do not want to hang it on the wall. It also costs like over $1,000 for this tiny thing. And so, no, I want a cabinet I can sit on the ground that has doors on it and stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, I would love to know a company that could build me a custom one. It would need to be nice and bulky, so my cats couldn't knock it over or something. I just don't know who would custom make them. That's the problem. Hire a carpenter. Yeah, I want the smaller height on the shelves. Is the problem. I was looking on IKEA, but I didn't find anything on their site. I mean, I can pay $1,000 if it's what I need. You know, I want what I want. I mean, yeah, if I could get a link, if you find one that actually works and somebody can send me a link, that would be wonderful. I might have to see if there's like carpenters that I can contact that can actually just build it for me. Because I have like something very specific in mind that I want, and it's not complicated. It's just I'm not finding like exactly what I want. I want a big huge cabinet that I can put there, that it can be wood, but it just needs to have the shelves about 8 inches apart and then have glass doors. That's it. You know, if I can get one that has LED lighting that backlights it, I would geek out over that, because that would look super cool. And I know that would cost a lot more. Yeah, you can anchor it to the wall with stuff for sure. By the way, Corey, thank you for the $20 tip, dude. I really appreciate that. That goes toward Canines for Warriors. And of course, he got his name up there as well. He killed the last guy, you cruel, heartless person, you. All right, let's see if we got some more questions. I think I answered that one already. Do you allow players to do the hide action behind a ruined wall to then next turn gain the unseen attacker? Yeah, that's exactly how that works. If they can break line of sight and they can use an action to make a stealth check to hide, and they roll high enough versus the enemy's passive perception, that's exactly how that works. They will then be an unseen attacker on the next round, and they get advantage on their first attack. That's how I rule it. They get advantage on their first attack because they're an unseen attacker. I mean, that's literally my understanding of how those rules work according to the readings out of the book. So yes, I do run it that way. My moderators want me to rant about this question. How do you deal with a player that is unmoving on their own wrong interpretation of the rules? I don't know if you're gonna squeeze a rant out of me about that. I had a player once who did this. Like, I don't know if they were actually a rules lawyer, but they knew the rules very well, and they would reference them a lot when they were trying to like make a point or, you know, win an argument or a discussion or something. The problem is that this player's interpretation of the English language was non-standard. So they interpreted things very weirdly, you know, like if I told you there is an egg sandwich up in the kitchen, you know, they would like interpret that in a completely weird way. Like, you know, I couldn't find it. Well, where did you look? I looked in the basement. I told you it was in the kitchen. Yeah, but that's a bad example. But they would interpret rules in such weird ways that I would just be like, English is your first language and English is my first language, but we don't read English and understand English in the same way. So they would constantly interpret things really weirdly, and they would try to argue things with me. And I was always just like, what are you talking about? Now, there were a lot of things I learned from that player because they pointed out things that I wasn't aware of and stuff, but there were times where like, no, they were not interpreting things the same way. And so I think the way that I would probably deal with that, this was back when I was just first starting 5th edition, and I didn't know the rules quite as well as I do now. And so, but I do remember we got into several discussions that some of the discussions took quite a bit of time. And we might have talked about something for a half an hour at the game table, during which time everybody else is not playing the game. And so I like to avoid that. Like, I want to play the game. And so what I do now is I will, when there is a question about a rule and somebody has a wrong interpretation of it, we'll look at the rule really quick, and I'll ask for what they think it means, and then I'll look at it, and then I'll be like, you know what? This is what I think it means. This is what we're doing for now. And at that point, we need to move on. We need to keep playing the game. And I'll tell them, look, this is my ruling. This is what we're doing. We're playing the game. And all of my players right now are mostly okay with that. And I don't think we really have any prolonged discussions about that. Like, I listen to their side of things and I'll consider things, and I want to know what my players think. But there reaches a time that I make a decision, and this is what we're doing, and we're moving on. And we try to do it as quickly as possible because I don't want to spend a half an hour talking about a rule, especially if we're arguing and discussing something and the person isn't reading it and interpreting it very well. Like, we need to move on and we need to keep playing the game because we can't just sit there all day and argue about it. And if I don't have any players to do this, but if I had a player who wouldn't let it go and wanted to keep arguing about something, I would just tell him, look, dude, you need to stop arguing because I have made my decision. And the more you argue, the more upset I'm getting. And the more upset I'm getting, the less likely I'm ever going to be to go your way. And so you're not going to win this argument. I'm not going to change my mind. Stop arguing because I'm getting more and more upset. And like, when I can get upset when players are arguing over something like this and they won't let it go, you know, and they're wrong, you know. And so I'm just like, dude, you need to stop. I made my ruling. This is the way we're doing it. We're not doing it that way. And if they get upset and start freaking out, you know, about this, that, and the other, I'll be like, dude, man, come on. Just like, it's not worth it, man. This is a game, you know. Like, do you just, like, I don't know, man, you're all freaking out about this rule. Do you just need to leave? You know, go calm down or something, you know, come back next game session if you want to, like, you know, because you can't freak out about a little rule, dude, in a game, you know. Like, we've talked about it. I've made my decision, you know. Perhaps some of the other players have also opined on it and given their decision, what they think, you know, it should be or whatever. and you just won't let it go, we are not going to sit here and argue about this for a half an hour or more, you know, and you're getting upset about it. I'm starting to get upset about it. And this is not good for gameplay. And nobody is having fun right now. This needs to end and we need to keep playing. And if I had a player that frequently would not let things go and would constantly bring the game down and just turn it into like, you know, a mire of like, you know, not fun because they wanted to argue about things that, you know, they would not be a player for very long in my game. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I just wouldn't put up with it. I wouldn't allow a player to ruin the game for everybody else because they wanted to argue about rules, especially if they did not interpret rules correctly. I have no problem if somebody points out, if I'm using a rule incorrectly out of either ignorance or whatever, and they point it out, I have no problem with being corrected in my using a rule incorrectly. But when we've examined the rule and I've made a decision, and especially if the other person is just wrong in their interpretation and like everybody pretty much agrees they're wrong, like they gotta let it go. Otherwise, if they keep doing that and they keep making a big issue about it, they're just point blank, they're not going to be a player in my game for very long, because I'm not gonna have a player ruin people's game experience based upon all of that stuff we just talked about. So that was a tired Luke rant. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. This is past my bedtime right now. I should be in bed. Why does everyone think spider webs are highly flammable? I just imagine a torch cutting through like a hot knife. I mean, the rules in the Dungeon Master guide, or in the player handbook for the spell web, says that you can burn through 5 feet of web in a round, but that implies that you're using like an action or something to burn through it. So I don't think spider webs are highly flammable. I think that they burn easily. So it's not like if I touch a torch to a spider web, the whole thing isn't going to combust and the whole thing isn't going to become on fire. What's going to happen is that it's going to just burn through it really quickly and it's just going to melt away. And I think I do agree that it's like what you said. It's a torch cutting through like a hot knife. It's just going to cut through it. It's not going to combust. It's just going to melt the part that the torch touches and you just melt it away. That's how I think a spider web would actually react. It's not going to combust. It's not gasoline. It's not covered with like gasoline and oil where it's going to combust. It's you know, it's not paper. It's like a spider web. So I don't think it combusts like that. It doesn't work like that. You know, go out into your garden, dude. Go outside, find some spider webs, you know, get a little stinking, do an experiment, man. Get a little lighter right here, you know, and sets it on fire and see what happens. It's not going to combust. It's just going to burn through the part that the flame touches. I guarantee you. I might be wrong. Somebody go set a spider web on fire and see what happens. I don't think it's going to combust. What the heck is 1D&D? Garrett's like, what is 1D&D? 1D&D is 5.5 edition or it's 6th edition. It's one of those two. We will find out in about 2 years. In 2024, that's when they actually come out with the full rule set. We will learn whether it's a 5.5 or whether it's a 6th edition. But right now it's neither of those. Right now it's a non-edition because there are no editions. Because editions are bad for sales. Actually editions are good for sales. Editions are really good for sales. But editions are bad for morale. Editions are bad for reputation, perhaps. Editions get people mad at you. Editions make you lose customers. But they're good for sales in many ways. They're good for sales. So they want the new edition because it's good for sales, but they don't want to call it a new edition because people get upset when there's a new edition. And if a new edition is coming out, it could impact current sales, even though future sales will usually go up with a new edition. So there are some weird little things going on there that, like, you have to walk that tightrope, you know, when you're thinking about the next edition, because of all the weird little dynamics you got going on, which is why they're telling us it's not a new edition. What's the most amusing superstition that you've seen people have at a table? Such as charging dice to prevent bad rolls. I charge my dice. So charging your dice is when you put the 20 like face up, like the 20 at the top. You're charging your dice. I've done that before. I'll get all my D20s with the 20 face up. I'm charging my dice, you know. I don't think it works. I just do it because I think it's funny. Like, I'm charging my dice. It doesn't actually work. I don't know. I don't think I've seen a whole lot of superstitions at the game table. I don't think I've noticed anything. I mean, I have my own thing. Like, when I'm running a D&D game, I wear one of these Celtic, I think it's Celtic or Nordic. It's Celtic runes. I wear one of these necklaces with the Celtic rune, and then I wear my rings. Like, these rings that I have on, there's only 3 times that I wear rings and I wear necklaces. It's when I am running a D&D game, it's when I am filming a D&D video, or it's when I'm live streaming. That's it. I do not like wearing rings. I hate wearing rings. They annoy the crap out of me. They're not comfortable, and I don't like necklaces because necklaces, you can get choked with a necklace. Somebody can just be like, right? I don't like necklaces, which is why if you ever meet me at a convention, I never wear lanyards around my neck, ever. It is so easy to choke someone with a lanyard, dude. Holy crap. You just choke them, dude. No. I don't wear lanyards around my neck. The lanyard gets tied to my belt loop and it dangles down there because I don't want anything around my neck that you can choke me with. Now, you can choke someone with their shirt. You can do, there's a choke you can do on a shirt, you know, and you can choke them out, you know, or with a hoodie. Hoodies are really nice for choking people out with. You can easily choke people out if they're wearing a hoodie. You know, if you get the right little, there's a way to do it. You weave your hands underneath the collar, right? And then you basically use the hoodie and your hands to apply pressure to the sides of the neck. And remember, when we're choking people out, we're not trying to cut off their wind. We're trying to squeeze the sides of their neck to cut off their blood supply to their brain, because then they go out really quick. If you're trying to like cut off their wind supply, it's going to take a while, right? So you want to apply the pressure to the sides of the neck to cut off their blood supply, and then they go out really quick. I don't know why we just started talking about choking people out, but that's the way you're supposed to do it. Anyway, I don't wear necklaces and I don't wear lanyards around my neck for that reason. Those are the instances when I actually do it, and probably shouldn't talk about choking people out because that'll get me in trouble. Penguin Butt says, Luke, stop teaching people how to choke people. That's when I was doing jiu-jitsu, that was one of my favorite things to do, was to do a choke on the neck. You know, like, you could be on the bottom, it doesn't matter where you are, you know, if you can get your hands in the right place under their collar and then just, oh, you can do that choke, dude. It's so nice. And sometimes we would roll in street clothes, and you can still, it's harder on a t-shirt because a t-shirt's gonna rip and you're not gonna be able to do that well. But if they had like especially if they had a heavy gi on, you could definitely do it with a hoodie. I think we with this other guy and I rolled once, I think we had hoodies on or something. And we were practicing choking with the hoodie, you know. So anyway, it was cool. So we went from superstitions to that conversation. That was cool. How much of Into the Fae was written by freelancers? What parts of it stand out as the highlights of the book? So Into the Fae was, I think I wrote the entire thing. I'm pretty sure that I wrote the entire thing. Penguin Butt, Goliath Cleric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I wrote the whole thing. I don't think any of that was freelance writing. I think that was all me. Now, Lair magazine and our subsequent Kickstarters, those are freelancers and employees that are writing that stuff. because I focus on other parts of the business now. Shouldn't you be talking in the rogue's voice?
All right, if you want to choke them out.
Yeah, I should be explaining it in the rogue's voice. This D&D Q&A is interrupted by an assassination lesson. Have you had many people try to choke you? No, I never have, because I try not to wear things that can choke me, but it's a concern of mine. I try to minimize risk. You know, I try to minimize putting myself in danger, you know? And so like, so basically when bad things happen, like you can avoid the majority of horrible situations and getting yourself in bad places and stuff by not going to certain places that are dangerous, and especially not at the wrong times of day or night, you know, and not hanging around certain people. Like locations and people are the things that are dangerous. If you stay away from the wrong locations and the wrong people, then that is like the number one self-defense lesson for anybody. Stay away from the wrong people and stay away from the wrong places. If you're going to bars and nightclubs, well, there's a number one place for an assault or something else to happen. So that's maybe not wise. If you're hanging around with the wrong people that are getting in trouble, causing trouble, or doing things that are high risk, you know, well, you're putting yourself at risk. So number one self-defense is staying away from the wrong places and the wrong people. And if you do those two things, you're probably never going to have anything horrible happen to you. Probably, right? But if you're hanging around going to the wrong places and the wrong people, your probability of something bad happening to you goes way up. And so, but also I think of things like, for instance, you know, I don't want to have choking hazards on me. Necklaces or lanyards around my neck, things that make it easy for me to choke. You know, I think about where I'm parking my car. I like to back into my parking spot so that if I have to get out of there quickly, I can get out of there quickly. You know, so transitional spaces are super dangerous. So when you're going from a store to your car, the parking lot is one of the most dangerous places because that's a transitional space. That's where somebody's going to be waiting. They're going to be in between the cars where it's hard to spot them, and they're going to be looking for somebody. They're especially looking for somebody who's on their phone and not paying attention. You know, so when you're in a transitional space, especially parking lots, you do not want to have your friggin' phone out. You want to be looking around. You want to be paying attention to you know, you see some people walking. You want to make eye contact with them. You know, if you come close to them, make eye contact and say hello to them. You know, make sure they know that you see them and you're paying attention and that you're not intimidated by them. You know, so I mean, it's like, you know, those basic simple things, you know, are just, they help protect you, you know. And so I don't know, the necks and lanyards and things are just one of those things I just think about because I know how easily you can do some choking stuff, you know what I mean? And, you know, I don't know. So I'm like, I don't want somebody to just come up behind me and be like, you know. The US isn't that dangerous in most places. It depends on, again, it depends on where you are. You know, like if you're in certain cities and certain parts of cities, it can be dangerous. You know, it just depends. So like where I live is not super dangerous, but I go to a city every day that has crime and bad things happen. You know, and so I think about those things and I have to be careful. I fear stupid people in large numbers. Yeah, large numbers. John says best live chat ever. Like anywhere, it depends on your location. Yeah. This conversation is exciting. Uh-oh. The most important question of the night. Is it okay if I tell one of my players their character died in between sessions because they took the last slice of pizza? I don't usually swear on live streams, so I'm going to try to control myself. All right. If they took the last slice of pizza, then all bets are off the table. And you absolutely can kill their character in between sessions. Preemptively, you could retroactively kill them back in time. You know, you could kill their parents before they were even born. and roll back the clock and have the whole group run the campaign again. Like, you can do whatever you feel like if they take the last slice of pizza. You know, it's like that should be the dungeon master's prerogative. Like, you're running the game, you should have dibs on the last slice of pizza, and the first slice for that matter. And the pizza should be free, the players should pay for it. So I think at that point, I think it's okay, and I wouldn't worry about it a whole lot. You just do what you gotta do, take care of business. And if you gotta kill their character, kill their character. Punish the character for the player's fault. Like, absolutely, just break all the DM best guidelines, because, you know, they should not have taken that last slice of pizza is really what it comes down to. Yeah, my apologies. I'm done. I'm walking away. One of my players is not subscribed to the DM layer. Should I have all my monsters target them until they subscribe? No, I don't care about subscriptions. Views are more important than subscriptions. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. I'm not in a race for subscriptions. Do you know of any good reasons for building a backbone for a campaign besides... Oh, do you know of any good resources for building a backbone for a campaign besides buying Wizards of the Coast one? Finishing up WDH, whatever that is, and feel like it needed a lot of rework. Thinking of making my own next. So yeah, if you buy a pre-built module campaign, you will always need to do some rework. It's just the way it works. It's life. That's the way it is. A lot of times it's fun to do that, though. I mean, I did a lot of rework to Curse of Strahd, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. I didn't mind it at all. It was customizing it to suit my taste and my players' taste. You will always have to do that, and making things more challenging, because Curse of Strahd as written was not that challenging. At least not for my players. I had to really amp things up to make it challenging at all for them, and they still... Our death rate was like non-existent in Curse of Strahd. I don't know how that happened. They almost never died in Curse of Strahd. And I was like bumping things up, and I don't know. They're just good they're good players too, and they're really good at playing the game and combat and stuff as well. And they had really good characters. What was the question? Oh, so resources for creating your own campaign. I don't know of any particular resources that literally walk you through how to create a campaign. I mean, the resources you need for creating a campaign are essentially like monsters, right? And an idea for your big bad. And then you're going to create adventures. And so you need like the things that go into adventures, traps, puzzles, encounters, monsters, and stuff like that. I mean, like, I don't know exactly what you're looking for. I mean, I think that what we publish in Lair magazine could be useful for building a campaign, because it contains a lot of those things: monsters, traps, puzzles. It has adventures in there as well that you could use in your campaign if you wanted to, or you could use the adventures to give you ideas for your own adventures you want to write. So, I mean, you could even take a module from Wizards and like use it as inspiration or something. So I don't know exactly what you're gunning for as a resource for building a backbone of a campaign. But there's probably a lot of things out there that you could cannibalize and use to inspire you or inform your campaign. It depends on what you're looking for. We are doing a giveaway tonight, guys. Hopefully we can get a link in the chat for it, but we're going to draw the winner to the giveaway in just a little bit here. So if you want to get in on that, please sign up for it and stuff. Yeah. Shiv Katel. I'm sorry, I messed your name up. Thank you for the super chat, dude. I appreciate that. It's a hi Luke. Thank you for all you do for the DnD community. I was not able to make it to LairCon. What was your favorite part? Playing Settlers of Catan. That was lots of fun. Oh, and Sheriff of Nottingham. We played Settlers of Catan and Sheriff of Nottingham, and that was tons of fun. I loved doing that. The D&D games were fun too. I was a player in a D&D game that was lots of fun. Ed ran that one for us, and I was running D&D games too, which was fun. But I mean, I run D&D games all the time. I don't have to go to a convention to run a D&D game. Seeing people, actually, you know what? I think I want to say seeing people was probably the best part. Like seeing some of like the people who watch my channel and stuff that were there, and then also my team members, Ed and Zach, and then some of my moderators and some of the Peak D&D people. I think seeing people was really cool too. But I had tons of fun playing Settlers of Catan and Sheriff of Nottingham. Yeah, that was fun too. I like that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I do have videos about creating campaigns. There's a campaign creation part 1 and a campaign creation part 2. I have 2 videos that talk about how to create campaigns. The hags in that windmill were no walk in the park. Gamemaster, are you talking about the hags in the Curse of Strahd book? Because those were just 3 night hags, and those were pathetically weak. I used different hags for my windmill. I made it much worse. I'm reading the chat now. Night hags aren't weak. But the ones I used are better. How would you deal with a player that intentionally tries to nuke the game because something happened they didn't like? Bad NPC interpretation from their backstory. They try to nuke the game? Like, how are they going to try to nuke the game? I don't know exactly what they're trying to do to nuke the game or what they try to do, but I would probably just call them on it and be like, no, it's not happening. Like, I don't know. Let's pretend that the player's upset because something happened they didn't like. And they're like, you know what? This is bullcrap. I'm just going to go start killing all of these people over here and this NPC and that townkeeper and that blacksmith. And I'm just going to start doing all this stuff. And, you know, and they're upset because something happened. I would just pause the game and be like, dude, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. You're upset because that thing, okay? And you're not just gonna go off and just start doing stupid bullcrap in the game, all right? If you want to throw a fit, okay, do it somewhere else, man. Like, go home for the night, throw your fit at home. You're not gonna blow the game up. You're not gonna cause a big scene. Okay, we're done. You can leave. Goodbye. Like, I'm just gonna call him on it, you know? I'm not gonna sit there and watch the bullcrap unfold. I'm not gonna be a party to the stupidity. You're not gonna go along with it and play the game out because, like, I'm afraid of confrontation and I don't know. I'm gonna call him on it, man. I'm like, this is bullcrap, dude. We're not doing this. You're not doing this. You know, if you want to throw a fit, go throw the fit at home. You know, maybe next week you calm down and you can keep on playing with us. You know, but maybe you can't, and maybe this is too much for you. You know, and maybe you should just move on. You know, so I'm just gonna call him on it. I don't have the patience for that, and I mean, I have a lot of patience, but I will not tolerate that. I think that's probably a better way to put it. I will not tolerate it because it is just ridiculous and uncalled for, and it's a sign of immaturity, right? Something happened they didn't like, and now they're just gonna try to screw the game up for everybody else. That's a massive sign of immaturity in a player. And if they're gonna pull a stunt like that, then that is a prime indicator that I probably don't want them in my game anymore. And so I'm gonna cut right to the chase, go right to the point, and call them on it. And if they decide to leave and never come back, then we all probably won. And the game is probably going to be better, would be my guess. Because that, like I said, something not going your way and then a player deciding to ruin the game for everybody else because of something not going their way and something they didn't like, that is a huge sign of immaturity. And probably not a player that you probably want playing your game table. And I would wager a guess that a player who does that has probably done other things in the game that people didn't like and that detracted from the fun as well. And so that's probably going to be a last straw where it's like, yeah, you know, goodbye. Yeah, I would not tolerate that sort of stuff. Oh, I answered that one. In events where the ruling that influenced an important part of the game was wrong, but a bit of time has passed already, would you recommend retcons or just keep on trucking? Keep on trucking, man. I mean, I would acknowledge it. I would tell my players, hey guys, you know, a few sessions ago, I made this ruling and I did some research and thinking, and I think I was wrong and it should be a different way. And I realized that the ruling influenced a whole bunch of different stuff. But that was a while ago, and I'm not going to change anything. I just want you all to know that I was wrong and it should be this way going forward. That's it. Thank you. Let's keep playing. I would do that, but I wouldn't change anything. I don't think that I would do that because people, you know, you're going to make lots of wrong rulings and stuff, and you can't go and retcon and redo the whole game when you make a bad ruling, because you will make bad rulings. You will. And you'll be wrong. It'll happen to every single dungeon master, except for those who think they're never wrong, and they're wrong. What are your thoughts on permanent damage, lost eye, hand, leg, going deaf in one ear, etc. during battle? Being able to rest for a couple hours or days after nearly dying seems unrealistic. Here's the thing, like, you're right, but you're wrong. There needs to be a balance between realism and fun gameplay. When we try to be too realistic in our rules, gameplay can often become not so fun. So we can say, well, you almost died, you lost an arm, it got hacked off, and that's realistic. Everyone probably will agree that if you got the living tar beat out of you with a great sword and you almost died from being hacked at from a great sword, that losing an arm is probably realistic. I mean, that's not unreasonable. We'll all agree to that. But we will also all agree that having a character who just lost their arm and is now much less effective in combat is probably not going to result in fun gameplay, because now you don't have a shield and you just have a long sword, and so your armor class goes down by 2, and you can no longer manipulate objects quite as easily, or pretend that you fought with a two-handed sword and now you lost your arm and you're down to one, you have to use a one-handed sword, you know. So or you lose an eye, or you lose both of your eyes. You know, spellcasting requires you to be able to see your opponent to cast the majority of the spells. And so a spellcaster who is blinded is a spellcaster who can't cast spells. And so you have to consider something being realistic does not necessarily make for good gameplay. And that is a balance we need to have in our games. And so for the whole idea of permanent injuries, where you have these things that persist and don't get better, but the thing, yes, realistic, that's great, that's wonderful. But is it fun? Do we enjoy playing that game? Or if that happens, is your character pretty much destroyed and ruined and you don't want to play it anymore, and you really just want the character to go away so you can get a new character because that character is now worthless for all intents and purposes? They're so severely, you know, hindered mechanically that they're not worth playing anymore, you know? So that's you have to balance that, right? Gameplay versus what's realistic, you know? And you could say, well, you know, they might have lost an arm, but they could go on a quest to get, you know, this magical prosthetic device and stuff, or they might be blinded. But like, for instance, this actually happened in one of my games. One of my spellcasters was permanently blinded. This was Curse of Strahd. There was a doll that came to life and gouged his eyes out, and he was permanently blinded. And this was something, I would not do this in most of my games because most players and characters would not enjoy this, because you kind of are ruining their character. But his eyes were gouged out. But this was Curse of Strahd, and I know the player, and I knew he was up for it. And now he was blinded, and they literally had to go on a quest, and he made a deal with a hag to get his vision back. And that went south in a whole lot of ways, and he did a great job role-playing that, and it was amazing. Now that wouldn't have worked for lots of other players, but it did in this case, and I kind of had a feeling that it would, so that I went with my gut, you know. So you could have things where they go on quests to get back some of their abilities and stuff like that, but I feel like for most or many players and groups that probably wouldn't be too much fun. Now it might be, like in my case, it worked great, you know, but I knew my player and I knew my group and I knew that we were playing Curse of Strahd and they wanted some, you know, stuff. So it worked. But for the most case, I don't think that the rules about losing stuff permanently works too well from a gameplay standpoint, because it's usually not fun. Can we get that Blinksky doll stat block? Yeah, Centerfire. It's actually let me find it for you. So it's in Tome of Beasts, and it's called an eye golem. Let me see if I can find it. It's called I'm pretty sure it's called an eye golem. I think it's in Tome of Beasts. Maybe it's under Golem Eye. Yeah, 233. Page 233 in Tome of Beasts. Here we go. I'm pretty sure this is the one that I used. I really just retrofitted it. That's the wrong one. I retrofitted it. It's called an eye golem. It's in Tome of Beasts, and these are the stats I use. I just turned it into a doll. I had this be a little doll, and there was one of these things. I swear this is the one I used. Pretty sure it was the eye golem, but I made it so that it could blind him. No, I'm pretty sure this is the one I was using. Maybe it was a different one. I might. Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah, no, this is it. This is it. This is it. This is the Squeaky, stop biting me. The golem emits a burst of blinding light, affecting all opponents within 30 feet who are visible to it. These creatures must make a successful DC 17 Constitution saving throw or be permanently blinded. All affected creatures. So what I did is I used this, but I didn't make it a blinding light. I had it, the doll leapt on top of him and was gouging his eye out. And he had to make the Constitution saving throw. And he failed and he became blinded. And then he did it. Well, I ruled that the first time it took out one of his eyes. And then the doll kept on trying to do it. And the second time he failed his saving throw, it took out the second eye. And then he was permanently blinded. And so I used this, but I completely changed like how it happened and how I described it happening, you know. And I didn't give it a recharge. I let the doll could do it. It was something the doll could do, you know. So anyway, this is the thing I used, but I customized it and stuff to make it fit a little bit better. And that's you can do this with any monster. You can take any monster and just call it something different and have it look different and have it behave differently and stuff, you know, and you can still use the mechanics in the monster, you know. Yeah, that doll was crazy. That was an amazing encounter. That was one of our best encounters in that entire game, I think. It was just amazing. Okay, we're gonna do our giveaway now. Let me go over there. I'm gonna do the giveaway. Oh, we're over too. I'm drawing the winner to the giveaway. Here we go. Drawing. Okay, here we go. What's the YouTube name? What is your YouTube name? Let me see. Emily Daniels. Emily Daniels. You are the winner. Congratulations. I'll be sending you an email and we'll get you hooked up. So I don't know if you're still here. You don't have to be here to win, but if you are, yay, you won. I'll send you an email and we'll get you hooked up. All right. I think that's all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go to bed now and get some sleep because I get up early tomorrow morning to do work because it's fun. All right, have a wonderful evening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week. Yeah, I'll be back next week. All right, I'm leaving now. Gotta stop this.